Well, it's week 2. Morning, you two. It is the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. Erika, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing fantastic. Still waking up, but yeah,
Light.
pretty good Saturday so far. Or yesterday, Oklahoma State had a bye week, so they couldn't hurt me.
Exactly.
It was a great college football day.
It's sometimes, having that week off is a good refresher to forget the past and look towards the future. Jorge, are you looking past Thursday night's game and looking towards the future of week 3 already?
I already told Stacey Perez when we upset the Packers in the playoffs, I'm going to mail her a cheese grater because she's a Packers fan. I just want her to just shred all the Packers gear and just, I'm over it. In case you could tell, good.
That's okay. Hey, I'm over week 1, and unfortunately, week 2 is not going to be much better. I don't believe for my Kansas City Chiefs. Drew is hoping that he can watch his. I'm gonna still almost call them St. Louis Rams. I know it's been 20 years, but some of us live in the past still. But he's about to head over to Nashville to watch the Rams, quote unquote. Hopefully, ruin Cam Ward's home opener. Right?
You know what we should have done, or I should have
went to the game.
Besides that, or a game, we should have had Kyle Ziegler and Drew Scott do a pie bet over which of their teams was going to win this week and have it do it on 4th and Frames, because
we should have.
But now we know. So
I know, and we had the opportunity. They were obviously we were all on together. It was just it was friendly banter. It didn't escalate into pies in the face, which
we've done.
To be honest, well, yeah, because you keep losing bets. So
one time I took a pie in the face because Jeremy Chin let me down. So
yeah, you've lost pretty much every bet that we've made. Some have not been resulting in pies to the face. Erika, if you ever want to have a fun go around, just make a bet with Jorge. You'll get to watch him take a couple pies. He'll opt out and take the small little baby pies. But then again, I respect the reason being. It doesn't matter why. It is.
No, if you saw the video, which I'll be happy to post on TikTok or whatever. Yes, I had this big banana cream pie, and I was like, I don't want to waste that. But I made 2 mini ones, and I took them right to the eyeball. Okay, so it was not like soft either. It was like, so yeah,
yes,
there we go.
Well, it was enjoyable for I think all parties. We got JJ in the chat, and Bob Harris is here with this. It's a great morning. It is week 2. As I mentioned, this is the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. If you're new to us, obviously what we'd like to do here on Sunday mornings is, number 1, answer all your start sit questions. Number 2 is have fun. I guess that should be number 1. But some of us have more fun than others. The 3 of us have a lot of fun together. But also want to kind of go through, look at some flex options. Because let's be honest. Realistically, these mornings are not designed around if you're starting Saquon or Devon Achane or any, I mentioned, upper end players. We're talking about some of the dirty of the dirty, which we like to do, and really break down some of the flex options, and then even go a step further, play a little fantasy forecast and try to pick out some situations amongst all the games where it could help you in future weeks by grabbing that player a week early, trade a week early, and not be a week or 2 late. So jumping right into some of the news and progressing notes throughout the week.
You got to give me a second to just cue the music up and now you just went right into it, like
straight in. I'm not giving you need cues like a tug of the ear or whatever,
or like a pull of the shirt. That would be good. Fantastic. Thank you.
You should do the same, because that scares the living hell out of me whenever that music drops. And
I reduced the volume of that too.
So what?
Well, it was at 100% and I dropped it to 50, but clearly that's still, concussion causing. So apologies, folks who are.
Sorry, next week I will have the Guardian cap on just in case, as it progresses bigger and bigger. But before we start, Drew wants you to make the noise the pies make again, Jorge, please. Perfect. Exactly. You lightsaber pies to your face, or Trekkie terms.
Trekker. Yeah, Trekker.
I know.
Yeah,
we all know by now. But I think we all know by now that Quinshon Judkins, who met with the NFL on Wednesday, practiced on Thursday, is all signs point to him playing today. Erika, immediate touches for Judkins. Is it going to be a less than 10 total snaps? Do you think they really just want to see what they have? And in a matchup, let's be honest, against Baltimore, where they probably will be trailing by double digits for the better half of the game, what do you think the involvement may be?
I honestly think they're just going to ease him in. I think it's still going to be Sampson that's going to get the majority of the carries of this game. Judkins has missed all of training camp, all of practice. He's just now getting back into it. Hopefully he stayed in football shape, but, I think they're just going to ease him into it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Jorge, any varying opinion of Judkins?
No, and not to mention just the matchup. Something tells me that they're going to be playing from behind, and that just helps with Dylan Sampson and his abilities in the receiving game. So, yeah, I like Sampson this week.
There you go. And if you're betting on the game, money line, I think Jorge just said put it all on Baltimore. So we're also a sports betting website on Sunday mornings, it sounds like, with solid analysis there, because I hope it's a closer game. And I don't know. Do you watch boxing at all?
I know Canelo lost last night, but I don't watch it regularly now.
He did. I don't really watch either, other than last night was interesting because it was a, kind of a super fight of an undefeated Bub Crawford and then Canelo, and Crawford won. And it was a good, I'll use the word parlay, foray, I guess, into today's matchup, because I think there are a lot of kind of heavyweight battles, divisional games that, while we think they could go completely lopsided in one direction, we always feel that those tend to be some of the more exciting games. So I wouldn't be completely shocked if Cleveland keeps it a little bit closer, but I don't think entirely. So positive notes, I guess, is James Cook did practice earlier in the week. He's on track to play. A person who I saw this morning most likely looks like he's not going to play is Tristan Wirfs in Tampa. Jorge, we hasn't been back. I mean, at what point do you expect for the offense? Like, do you think there's going to be a complete boost when he returns to any one aspect? Is it going to be the running game? Is it going to be Baker Mayfield? Is that something that, I mean, we didn't see any of the negatives last week necessarily with Igbuka, but is it just kind of one of those slow plays with Wirfs, or does his loss really change any of your outlook for today's game?
Man, it's hard to say when, we saw what they did last week coming back and beating Atlanta in the end of the game there. I think they found out that, hey, if we operate the 2-minute drill effectively, which they can do, they can keep a lot of teams off balance. And so if they follow that same model going forward, I don't know if it does. But it took a while for Bucky Irving, to get into the end zone last week. So that's a little bit of a concern. And, so obviously when you lose one of your best offensive linemen, the pass blocking becomes an issue. The proficiency in run blocking becomes an issue. But like I said, if they keep the pace of play, kind of high going into this week, I don't know. I don't think that they're going to be as in trouble as a lot of people are anticipating.
Yeah. I don't know. Erika, I mean, what's your take on Tampa? It feels like everybody's kind of like, Tampa's a tricky team because I feel like I get completely different opinions. That some people think the touchdown regression for Baker and companies obviously got to drop. Others think that everybody was perceived values from Mike Evans to Bucky Irving, etc. Tristan Wirfs changed the narrative for you at all when he returns, if 100%?
I mean, it's possible. Tampa is a very strange team right now. I don't know how Mike Evans is going to be rest of season. I really think Igbuka is going to be the guy. Even when Godwin comes back, if he comes back in a timely manner, working back from that injury is going to take a while. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Tampa. I think Baker's definitely going to regress from last year.
Yeah, it's odd. I didn't think Tampa would be the team that I can talk to 5 people and get 6 different answers somehow. It is what it is. I think obviously spending a lot of time on speculative right now. They played 1 game and we're in week 2, but speaking of 2, maybe 2 to 5, is how long Brock Purdy is supposedly going to be out, that foot ligament issue. I think we all know what that means with Mac Jones in this offense. Christian McCaffrey, what's the update with that? What last I saw is he's everything's good, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, it was like he was not downgraded to questionable, but he didn't practice. And was that speculation? Was I misreading something? Were there tea leaves that people were trying to come up with? I didn't see anything staggering or too overly scary, but I want to make sure that I didn't miss something that you guys might have seen.
So based off of the NFL.com's injury report, he logged in a full practice, the last one, and there's not like a questionable tag for him at all. He's good to go.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was hoping. Again, you get mixed into a lot of, there's 1,000 different things hitting you all at once, and you don't know which ones are phantoms and not. But Charlene, good morning to you. No, the yawns.
Can I drop some news here, or maybe Erika should be the one that drops some news regarding Charlene Erickson, because we got something exciting to announce with her. Erika, why don't you take it here?
Yeah, so Charlene is going to join Stacey Perez, me, and Colby Conway on Monday nights for our waiver wire watch party. So she's the new addition to the Fantasy and Frames family, and super excited for tomorrow night's show.
Yeah, if you didn't have the pleasure of meeting her at the Fantasy Football Expo this past a couple months ago now, she is an amazing person. She has such a passion for football and fantasy football, and she's just very cool to be around. So, and by the way, she was very impressed with your wine collection that you brought to the expo there, Nate. She's like, "Oh, who brought this?" And it was like, "Oh, that was Nate." She's like, "Oh, okay, Nate."
I know.
So yeah, she is welcome. Like what Erika said, to echo those sentiments. Welcome to the Fantasy and Frames family, and I cannot wait for your all's premiere tomorrow for the Waiver Wire watch party show.
Now, are you guys going to do both games? Yeah. Really? Oh, come on!
No.
That's Charlene's first. No, I don't blame you one.
I think that's too much on a week one for brand new show. So we'll see how the watch party goes. I think it's going to be a fun time.
I'm very excited for it. I can't wait to watch. And welcome, Charlene. It's a long time coming. You've already been part of the family for so long. It's nice to actually, make it official.
We got a couple questions already. You want me to throw them up on screen?
Yeah. Start with Albert. Good morning, Albert. All right, picking two. It's a half-point PPR format. Devonta Smith, DJ Moore, Hollywood Brown. So Devonta Smith, Hollywood Brown in the same game, or DJ Moore. So any standout to you, Jorge?
Yeah, I would definitely say. I would say DJ Moore. And why do I say that as a standout? I don't know if it's a 100% like, woo, DJ Moore. Like he was getting targeted, but Caleb was also missing some throws there to DJ Moore on Monday night. So, that he wants to throw it to DJ Moore, whether they've improved on their, I guess I don't want to put all the blame on Caleb Williams, but as long as they've improved that connection during practice this week, I'm excited. You're going to hate me for this, but the other person I would pick was Devonta Smith, because Hollywood Brown, we saw what happened against the Chargers when it was pretty much like a shootout for most of that game in the second half. And, how often was he, contributing to your fantasy teams? If anything, it was more so you saw some sprinkling in of Pacheco and Patrick Mahomes using his legs. And so, with the Kelsey, touchdown also, I don't know what to make of Hollywood Brown. And Erika, what do you think of Hollywood Brown in this situation?
I think he's going to get the targets. That's the thing. Pat Mahomes likes to throw the ball. He had 39 attempts last week. He's going to throw it. And who else do they have right now?
Nobody.
Literally, Hollywood's going to get everything.
He had 10 targets last week. Or 10 receptions last week. And I know it's half point PPR. So it's not the full PPR, gold bag that you have. But the only difficult scenario is that he's going to have a lot of Cooper DeJean, and that's not a great matchup. But at the same time, I do get the feeling that they've abandoned the running game pretty much as a whole. At least it's 1 weekend. I can't say that completely, but it sure looks like they've abandoned the idea of completing that running game. And Philly's not exactly a team that you want to try that against with Jalen Carter. Without Jalen Carter, even the Dallas Cowboys were successful. Vince, but the Chiefs, I don't think, will take that same approach. So while I do like Devonta Smith in the matchup, I like AJ Brown a little bit better. I would go Smith and Hollywood Brown, and I'd leave DJ Moore on the bench just for what you said, Jorge. I know Minnesota was a tough matchup last week, but Detroit's not exactly this cakewalk. So I'm going to look for I'm hoping for a higher scoring game that the Chiefs just don't get manhandled like in the Super Bowl. And I would say Hollywood and Devonta Smith.
All right, let's go to JJ's question here. He has Roma Dunze and J.K. Dobbins. Erika, why don't you get us kicked off with this one?
This is difficult. I don't know about this one. I do like Rome because he's like Caleb Williams' safety, safety target. What did he do last week?
He had 6 receptions on 9 targets last week.
Yeah, and Caleb only threw 34 attempts, so he's getting the majority of the looks from Caleb.
Yeah, if I felt I think I feel comfortable one more week with Dobbins as the main attraction, just because RJ Harvey had the one big run. It was enough that makes me think that it could eat into the workload of Dobbins, but I don't know what I think about the Colts defense as a whole. Was that a product of the ineptitude of the Miami Dolphins, or is it that their defense has improved? And we talked a lot in the preseason about a new defensive coordinator they brought over from Cincinnati, correct?
That's
and
right.
While there was no success necessarily in Cincinnati, did he change the culture in Indy? I would probably lean Dobbins just from safety standpoint, but I can understand going to Dunze for the safety blanket thing. You break the tie for us, Jorge.
Well, I think, I'll break the tie. I would go Odunze just because if we're talking in a PPR, give me the target volume, much like what Erika was saying with Hollywood Brown and his 10 targets last week. So, but even in a half, you're still getting half a point per reception. So I would do that. The RJ Harvey thing is going to be a thorn in J.K. Dobbins' side all season, and that's going to be kind of interesting. Not to mention Dobbins is only getting 3.9 on the ground per attempt, so it's not like he was blowing away the running back room where it's this is my room. No, I'm not going to give it up to RJ Harvey. It's no, are you? The fact that I have to go, oh well, man, are you? I'd rather go with the target volume with Odunze.
Fair enough. I think JJ has one more.
Sure.
So full point PPR, picking 2 out of the group. DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Stephon Diggs, and J.K. Dobbins. I, for one, am going to go back to the Tony Pollard will. I think last week was an indicator that the rushing volume, just the ownership of that backfield screams the volume I want to be able to make a solid case as a high end flex RB2. I think the Rams, while the Rams are a better defense, I think it's the pass rush for me that really more scares me more so than just stopping Tony Pollard. Will the Titans be able to continue, and actually move the ball? Hopefully we see more progression out of Cam Ward. And Drew is disappointed, but Drew would also be happy because I think he knows that I have a lot of Tony Pollard, and we support each other. So he'd rather see his team lose or keep it close so I can get some fantasy points. So I'm in on Pollard. The number 2, I'll let you guys decide unless you don't think Pollard's one of the 2 options. Jorge?
No, I like Tony Pollard. He owns the backfield, right? And we know that he has prowess in the receiving game. So I'm not. He's the top of these options. Let me put it that's probably the nicest way I could probably phrase this. You look at DeAndre Swift. He was getting all the volume with his 3.1 yards per carry. So that's not. Volume is king in fantasy football. We like to talk about that. We also like to see that they're doing something with that volume, and I don't think we saw that against a tough Vikings team this past Monday. And that leaves J.K. Dobbins and Stephon Diggs. And we saw much like what Jonathan Kalinowski over at fantasyandframes.com did a fantasy football trend of the week here. And he was talking about Kayshon Boutte's 82% snap share here and 6 receptions for 103 yards last week. That's nothing to sneeze at, folks. So that kind of makes me a little bit concerned about Stephon Diggs, although the target volume was there for Diggs, 7 targets, 6 receptions, was catching it at 85.7% of the time, but only got you 57 yards. That being the case, that the fact that Drake May could support 2 high targeted wide receivers in that offense makes me want to go Pollard and Diggs.
Erika? Yeah, I was just also looking up Diggs stats, and like he only played 41% of snaps, but he got the volume. So, you know, even if Boutte is going to be the number 1, Diggs is still going to get, you know, his share of the targets as well.
There you go, JJ.
Yeah, Mr. Scampers in the chat. Good morning and congrats, Charlene of FIF. Thank you very much, Mr. Scampers. We got another question here in the chat. Good morning. Half point trade away Travis Hunter, get Keon Coleman. I already have Lamb, so that's what he wants to ask us about, whether he should do that.
Right, yeah.
He already has Lamb, Brian Thomas, Ricky Pearsall, Buka, Josh Allen at quarterback, and thank you. Man.
I see the reason, you know, at least the thought process of getting rid of Travis Hunter, not to have Hunter and BTJ on the same team. Do I think I think it's a negative move as far as like, instead of just being a lateral move, pivoting away from having 2 Jags, I don't see Coleman as the same level as Travis Hunter rest of season. I feel like the return could be greater than Keon Coleman. And I know some people will think otherwise. And I think Keon Coleman's going to be fine. But I still have my reservations about, I do believe in Jacksonville, it's a clear Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, maybe 1A and 1C, maybe not 1B. But in Buffalo, I do believe there's going to be spike weeks, but any given week, I wouldn't be shocked if Josh Palmer is the one, if they end up incorporating and no one gets more than a 20% target share. But that's just, you know, I think I've always been a little less than overly optimistic on Keon Coleman. Am I wrong?
So I like Hunter. We saw last week that the Bills were able to support 3 wide receivers with 9 targets, and 11, referring to Shakir, Josh Palmer, and then Keon Coleman led the way with 11 targets. That screams to me, man, I don't know who he's going to throw to from week to week basis. You know, who's got the better wide receiver cornerback matchup versus you look at Jacksonville last week. You know, we saw the target volume basically go to either Travis Hunter, who actually led the team in targets last week, and Brian Thomas. So that being the case, you know, that would be what I would do. But I think there's something we could probably get to when we do Fantasy Focus later, and that is, what the hell's wrong with Trevor Lawrence? And what's going on with that situation, because he looked average last year, then he got injured, and then last week he, you know, it just didn't, something's not clicking there. But we can get to that a little bit later. But to answer your question, I would trade away Hunter. I would keep Hunter and not go with Coleman.
Okay. Right. Jerry wants to know half point PPR. Erika, Tony Pollard, Devontae Adams, or Ricky Pearsall. Pick one for the flex play.
Okay, what were they again?
There you go. Sorry.
Perfect. Pollard, Adams, or Pearsall. I like Pearsall. You know, Jennings is probably, he's set to play, I believe, according to the latest injury reports, but you know, how healthy is he actually going to be? You know, you have a somewhat hobbled Christian McCaffrey, again, set to play, wasn't on injury report. But Pearsall is going to get, you know, all of those Mac Jones targets, sadly.
Yeah, I know. It's gross to say, isn't it?
It's
not that much fun. But, you know, even the worst quarterback situation will still most likely have, and we don't know about in San Francisco. It could obviously be tricky that they try to reduce Mac Jones's passing volume, but I don't think they want to lean entirely on McCaffrey to handle that much of an increased workload. They're gonna have to rely a little bit of faith in Mac Jones, and even with that, I think a 20% probably 23 to plus % target share to Ricky Pearsall, even if they're not the best, most catchable targets, still should deliver solid, even if it's half point PPR. I think the volume will be there. So I agree with that. Charlene's got a doozy, Jorge.
All right. What's up? Sorry.
Sorry.
I got 2 quarterback IDP Dynasty. Ooh, hello. And I have no quarterback this week. Okay, that could be a problem. 4 backups and Brock Purdy. Love it. Would you offer up Bowers for Herbert and Strange? I won with only Purdy last week, which kudos to you. Would I offer up Bowers and Herbert and Strange? I like Brenton Strange, and if you don't have a quarterback, you obviously need it. So by necessity, I would do it. But I get it. Brock Bowers is one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in fantasy. But like I said, I'm not out on Brenton Strange. So,
but she also has this.
Okay, you also have McBride. Well, that's all. But see, there you go. Which yes, to report, that's why she's willing to part with Bowers. Mm-hmm. Even more so of a reason to make this trade.
That is definitely, I think, pertinent information. Having Trey McBride is helpful for sure.
We got a comment for you from NRU.
Go ahead.
So, folks, whenever you drop a super chat, we will definitely emphasize your question next. We understand everybody has a ton of questions this week, so we really appreciate the support here. Fantasy Frames. He says, 2nd week tuning in, love the show. Thank you very much. That means the world to us to hear. Thank you. We hold on. Where's this question?
I got it.
Thank you.
Definitely caveat, not Joey Wright. We know, it is not him asking this question. He would have an answer for this simple question, if you ask me, which is starter sit, an iguana riding on James Conner, or a gecko carried by George Pickens in a baby Bjorn.
What the?
I have an easy answer to this question, believe it or not. With the baby Bjorn thing gave it away for me. It's the iguana riding on James Conner, because as Drew was mentioning on 4th and Frames last week, George Pickens was running a lot of horizontal routes, and that's a lot of this way, that way, this way, change of direction. And I don't want a gecko getting a concussion from all the different changes of directions he's running all across the field. So give me the iguana riding on James Conner.
So you know what Gecko's favorite thing is? To
Gecko
face that and facing one, single high safety coverage. And that's exactly what he's going to see a ton of, which could be plenty of one-on-one matchups. And I think last week, while being a down week, I think this is the week that Pickens has that we see why he's with Dak. So unfortunately, it's like we're on both sides. So now we'll need Erika or Dave to break the tie.
Erika's like, I'm out. Okay, so Dave.
Smart move.
Dave,
we'll keep it simple. James Conner or George Pickens. How's that?
There you go.
Oh, I was going to say, what is iguana riding? Did I read that right?
Nope.
Yes, you did.
What is iguana riding? What am I doing?
He's riding on James Conner. Yeah. So you're rolling with James Conner or George Pickens today?
I'd rather James Conner. I didn't like what I saw out of George Pickens last week, to be honest. It's week 1. I get it. I know it's too early to react, but he didn't look like a stud who just missed his opportunities. I don't know if Dak's really looking for him, to be honest. So it may just be the CeeDee Lamb show, which no one's surprised, right? But I'd rather James Conner. I mean, he just looks great every single year. It's reliable.
All right. And just to confirm what Nate was saying, this is not Joey Wright logged into the wrong account. No, love it. Fantastic. We got Joe in the chat. Thank you all very much for asking all these questions. We really appreciate you tuning in. He says, PPR, pick one, Dobbins, Walker, or Charbonnet. So going back to Jonathan's article over at fantasyandframes.com, where he was looking at fantasy football trends of the week. Snap share, Kenneth Walker, 40%, Zach Charbonnet, 58%. Yet it was Charbonnet who had more of an efficient and productive day for you. So I'm gonna go right in the hot hand with Charbonnet.
I feel like I'm gonna be wrong. The only way I'm right with that situation is if I have two teams, and in one league I start Kenneth Walker, and in the other league I start Zach Charbonnet, and somehow I'll be wrong in both. I don't like the situation. I don't know if I love J.K. Dobbins' situation. going forward, it's the PPR that really throws me off a little bit because it seems like that can inflate either one of Walker, Charbonnet above Dobbins just in the likelihood that they see viable targets.
Let me see if this sways you a little bit more, gives you a little bit more confidence. According to the latest injury report, Walker is not listed. So that foot injury that he had been dealing with is no longer apparently causing any issues for him. So does that sway you at all in terms of where you feel confident with him?
I believe more in Walker myself as far as who has the better ceiling.
But look at opportunity, guys. I mean, J.K. Dobbins had 16 rushes and he caught 2 out of 5 passes. That's 21 opportunities, 17 touches out of 21 opportunities. I like that split. I mean, Dobbins with 21 opportunities to make plays is great. And look, he got you decent numbers. He's not your running back one. He got you 63 yards, a couple of catches, and a touchdown. I mean, out of your running back 2, you're happy for week 1, right? You know, better than, hey, what's it going to be in Seattle? Is it Walker? Is it Charbonnet? I don't want to be playing this guessing game all year long. I mean, Dobbins is the one over PJ Harvey until further notice.
So just now add some other context here. You know, they are taking on the Seahawks, that is taking on the Steelers, who just gave up a total of 182 yards in the running game to the Jets. So there is a world where I believe Walker and Charbonnet could eat. The issue for me with Walker, again, is going back to what Charbonnet was able to do with his snaps. He got majority of all the goal line work also. So that goal to go situation, that also leads me into why I would be more pro Charbonnet.
Yeah,
sounds like Nate is Walker. Dobbins.
No, I'm still leaning. I'm gonna still lean with Dobbins this week, but rest of the season, I'm changing. Yeah, it's very similar to what I was starting with. I think I like Kenneth Walker's upside, but I think that even let's say he gets 50. Let's say Kenneth Walker has 53% of the snaps. That's what matches what Dobbins had last week. And while that number may go down, you're talking about the opposing team. Indy, I'm going to go back to. I just don't. I feel like it was a mirage as far as how good the defense was, because despite all that, they still allowed the highest yards after contact per attempt last week. Now, and J.K. Dobbins, there's one thing I think he can do, should be able to break tackles. But let's go to the next question, since I think Dobbins is the answer for 2 of the 3. Not feeling great.
There we go. NRU, who gave us a generous donation earlier, he says 3 wide receiver league, no flex. Ibuka, Harrison,
T. Higgins, Jacoby Myers.
Sorry, I was reading JR. I'm like, where is J? Oh, okay. T. Higgins, thank you. Jacoby Myers. He doesn't know who to sit.
So sitting one of those 4, that is a tricky one. If Bowers was not going to play, then the answer would not have been Jacoby Myers. I still don't know if it is. I'm looking at just pure game script, and it's like I can't go away from Ibuka as just dominant last week was. And I know Houston, the Derek Stingley thing is more of Mike Evans' problem. I'm not too concerned with anything else. Sorry, Colby, if you get a chance to listen. We're not knocking Houston. Houston's still going undefeated for the rest of the decade. But it's inside rumor trading, a little confidence. Yeah. But Arizona against Carolina just seems like that's Carolina's defense is kind of the cheat code. The question then, I guess, is do you sit Jacoby Myers? Because I think Cincinnati-Jacksonville seems like it's going to be a high-scoring game as well, and I think I want both pieces of that. Here's the question, though. You and Dave both. Does Cincinnati continue on with this trend that they've had as slow-starting offenses for another week, for another year? That's the question I'll ask both of you two to answer.
I can't see that happening. I mean, it's we say it every time. It's week 1. There's no need to overreact. I mean, hopefully no one's dropped Jamar Chase. But they'll be fine. They'll be fine. I mean, they averaged 38 points last year. I'm not worried. They'll pick up the steam.
So I get it. It's a 49 point over under for Jacksonville and Cincinnati, but man, like again, there's something wrong with Trevor Lawrence, and there's something not clicking. I don't understand how this is going to be a huge shootout. Personally speaking, I feel like if I had to pick one, I would pick Higgins. To be honest with you.
And that there you go. And I have no problem with that.
I'm on board with Higgins as well. Igbuka is playing lights out. I mean, maybe this is the changing of the guards. This year, finally, we see Mike Evans take a step back. I'm not saying he becomes a 2, but maybe becomes a 1A, 1B, rather than just Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is the 2.
All right. We got Geek Mail in the chat. Morning, y'all. Happy week 2. Happy week 2 to you as well. We got Joe in the chat. Non PPR Swift or Henderson. Look,
Swift.
You really? You just
non PPR?
Yeah.
Go Swift as well.
You don't think it doesn't matter? Just the yardage is going to add up either way for Henderson, whether it's receiving yardage or rushing yardage.
I think I'm gonna go based off of just
attempts. The attempts.
Yeah, high quality touches as well.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, he has a question here. Geek Mill, that is. Flex question: 10-team PPR.
Who do I start?
Thank you. That was my next question.
Or is it who do I sit?
Thank you, Geek Mill. If you could give us that little insight, that'd be great.
It's who do I start? We're not
okay. All right. Tony Pollard versus the Rams. Travion Henderson at Miami. Keon Coleman at the Jets, or Keenan Allen. For me, it's Keenan Allen, and I would go Tony Pollard in this situation.
Dave?
I'm the exact same. I mean, Keenan Allen, man, he surprised me. I think this is great news for Justin Herbert owners as well, because Ladd McConkey obviously is fantastic, but he was working as a slot receiver, a down the field receiver. He was just doing everything you could ask for a wideout, right? Now they've got 2 genuine slot receivers in Ladd and Keenan. And I mean, Quentin Johnson, I'm sure we'll get to it later. He started to show that he's being the guy that they drafted in the first round, right? So this Chargers offense is going to be great. And I think Keenan Allen gets 8 to 10 looks a game.
All right. Thank you very much for the question. We got another one from Jonathan Santiago. Pick one. Ridley, Hunter, or JMO. PPR also got Pitts or Hawkinson.
Let's see.
I would go Hunter.
Yeah.
Let me look something up real quickly here.
Pitts or Hawkinson.
Man, I know this is not like something that we're familiar with saying, but like Kyle Pitts wasn't like horrible last week. So
yeah,
I was waiting for someone to say it because I kind of feel the same.
If Darnell, let's see this week. Let's fast forward to the same conversation with Darnell Mooney there and see if the target's still, and I think it's possible because it wouldn't shock me. Kyle Pitts has we know what the pedigree is, but I do want to see what Darnell Mooney's involvement with this offense is going to do to his target share and looks. And Drake London also got banged up in the game, and there was a lot of other factors that still I can't ignore because those are true truths. Is that Drake London could still get banged up, Darnell Mooney could be useless in his first game back, and it still could be Kyle Pitts. I feel safer with Hawkinson. But if you guys like the upside of Pitts, I can respect that.
Wait, how many looks did he get last week?
8 targets. Kyle Pitts, that is.
I mean, and he caught 7 of them. I mean, that's a pretty decent, in the dumpster fire land that is the tight end scope. If you don't have your top 2 or 3 guys, 7 out of 8 catches for 59 yards. It's not bad. Can't complain too much. Yeah.
Yeah, we look at the target distribution for Minnesota last week versus Chicago. JJ got you 7 targets. The next person in wide receiver was Jalen Naylor with 3 targets. We look at the tight end situation here. TJ Hawkins has got you 4 targets. I feel more comfortable with the Falcons offense and their ability to put up yards and points. So that's why I'm going to roll with Pitts and Hunter this week to answer this question.
There you go.
All right.
Hey, can I put a request, especially for our West Coast hosts, being me? Can we get some merch? Because right now I'm representing an electronics company. Let's get some Fancy and Frames merch for coffees, all right?
I will
6:30 bloody a.m.
I will roger that. And we appreciate your dedication for getting up at 6:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. So
I love fantasy football. This is fun.
All right, we got Summer in the chat. Welcome back, Summer. Good morning. Tough lineup question at flex, choosing between Jameson Williams, Jalen Waddle, Ricky Pearsall, Javonte. Choosing 2, I would go with, and I'm assuming this is a PPR. If not, please let us know. I would go with Pearsall. That is, I am so high on Ricky Pearsall this week.
Is Jennings playing?
Even if Jennings is playing, we saw the first read target share or targets last week be virtually the same. So I'm going to go with Ricky Pearsall, and especially with Mac Jones being somebody who's going to lock onto one wide receiver. You know, you have to think about who's more than likely have gotten work with Ricky Pearsall over the course of the summer, Mac Jones or Jennings, and it was Pearsall. Obviously, Jennings was either injured or he was holding out. So anyhow, going back to the question, Ricky Pearsall, and I would go with Jalen Waddle. I like the matchup this week. I think the Dolphins get back on track.
Dave?
Yeah, Dolphins are not getting blown out every game. You know, they're a decent team. Had a terrible game last week, but don't expect to see that same performance again. Waddle, and I mean, I think they're going to be transitioning to Waddle being the number 1. I can't see a world where Tyreek Hill stays in I was going to say Kansas City, in Miami, but hey, he might end up in Kansas City. So I think they're going to start to funnel more looks to Waddle anyway. So exact same. Going to be Pearsall and Waddle.
I'm with you on Pearsall, and then I have Jameson and Waddle separated by basically a spot in my rankings. I'll pivot. I'll go with Waddle to make it unanimous so that we're all together, but I don't have them separated by that too much. I like Jalen Johnson returning for the Bears as far as getting his feet wet, and Jameson Williams could take advantage. But I am high on Waddle. I think that Waddle is a person that if you can go out and trade for both Dynasty and Redraft, I think he's a great target because exactly what Dave said. The writing on the wall for Tyreek and company is that something should maybe not happen. And if that's the case, Jalen Waddle's your high volume one that you won't have to give up much to get, because I think most people are down on him as a whole. So that's it.
All right, we got another question. We got a bunch of questions. Thank you very much for everybody for being patient with us this morning.
Real quick, just Javonte. I was a bit worried about Javonte last week. I think his stats were skewed. The between the tackles guy is Miles Sanders. I mean, I didn't see Javonte really other than in the 20-yard zone and in the red zone and back, right? I mean, he did great, don't get me wrong. He found the end zone twice, but I think Miles Sanders is really their pass-catching back.
All right. Let's go to Ryan in the chat here. Ryan, good morning. Good morning to you. Standard League. Travion Henderson, Nick Chubb, Tyrone Tracy. So if we're going standard, then by your all's rationale, Travion Henderson is not in the discussion last week. And we did see Nick Chubb last week. He got 13 attempts for 60 yards.
Mm-hmm.
He was targeted, once, although it was a target, right, in the receiving game. Man,
in a terrible game for the Texans as well to get that many rushing attempts. I mean,
it's still Tyrone Tracy for me against Dallas. I don't want Nick Chubb against Tampa's run D historically they've been so much better against
linebackers, exactly, and then linebackers for the Buccaneers like Servassier Dennis, and they're too good. I think I'm with you with Tracy, but it feels gross. Like I need some steel wool to like.
I know, but
I'm going Chubb. I think the Texans get back and they start, using Chubb a lot more. I mean, I think they saw what he's still got some fuel in the tank, but I think Chubb gets 20+ looks.
All right. Let's see here. Joey Wright in the chat says, love the show. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Joey. That really does mean a lot to us. All right. Colby Conway speaking my language here. Greg Rousseau or Trayvon Walker. Rousseau, edge rusher for the Buffalo Bills. Walker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I want to give some credit here to JT, Justin Taylor, one of the hosts or co-hosts rather for the Shoot the Gap podcast or IDP podcast here. One of the things we were talking about in the offseason when we did our AFC East preview for IDP was that one of the issues with the Buffalo Bills defensive line and always feeling super confident in recommending Rousseau in seasons past is that the Buffalo Bills defensive line just rotated and rotated and rotated and rotated. And so he was never getting more than, 50% of snaps, sometimes 60% of snaps. Now you go back to this past week, versus Baltimore. We saw it was very, very clear. Greg Rousseau, 35 snaps, Bosa, 35 snaps. And then after that, everybody trailed off. AJ Epenesa has basically fallen off this defensive line. Javon Solomon, him and Ebeneza both had 16 total snaps. So it is literally going to be the Bosa and Rousseau show. And the fact that, going back to JT, when he was mentioning, was that the linebacking core for Buffalo is so poor, they're going to need to constantly be applying more pressure, which means getting your best edge rusher on the field more and more. So I'm going to go with Rousseau here. Trade on Walker. Deceptively good last year, and then back to being bad this past week. So I'm not high on Trayvon Walker. He needs to be bumped down in a lot of people's rankings. So give me Gregory Rousseau.
Yeah, Dave and I agree with everything you said.
I'll second
that. Exactly.
No, not JT. You get the shout out. JT Orange Ford. Just give him a follow, folks. Jameson Williams or Jalen Warren PPR. Dave, what do you think here?
I'm not a big Jameson Williams fan. Not that he's not talented. He's just primarily a deep threat. So I worry that he won't get the chances that Jalen Warren will. I mean, Warren looked pretty decent. So if you're looking for just a baseline of points, go Warren. If you're looking for a guy who might go for $150 and 2 tutties, go Jameson. Just know that Jameson's floor is 0.
Jameson's floor is not 0. Jameson Williams was a top 20 wide receiver last year.
Yeah, but he was downfield threat. He's fast. He's great. He's talented. But you're relying on him taking it to the house. I mean, how many did he take to the house? I'd love to see if we could find a stat there. I mean,
how many touchdowns that he had last year?
As in, taking it 40+ yards.
I mean, I don't know if the 40+ touchdown. I mean, I think just if we want to talk about just targets in general, and I mean, we saw last year that he had 91 targets, 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
So, I'm sorry, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's closer, and I understand people's reluctance to Jameson Williams. It's last year I broke down a little bit on Jameson as far as offenses, wide receivers that have an average depth of target of over 10 yards with 90+ targets have never finished outside of the wide receiver 36, I believe it was. And they're usually attached to better offenses. And he followed through with that. The floor, I won't say is 0. And I know that was kind of tongue in cheek, but at the same time, kind of not, because if he's not going to see 10 targets every single game. We know that. But Jalen Warren, while being useful, still remember last week in this, committee approach, he was their quote unquote lead back and he only saw 48% of their snaps. So only seeing 48% of snaps. Do we think that's going to improve this week against Seattle, or do we think it stays the norm? I don't like the Pittsburgh situation because at some point I think Caleb Johnson has to get involved. Will he? I don't know. That's my tricky part, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But I lean Jameson Williams just a bit between them. I think it's probably not as safe. You might not feel as good. That steel wool, that Jorge talked about earlier, could be going into it. But I think that's also my Jameson Williams fandom in me speaking a little bit more than, Dave using rational thought with this, which I don't like rational thought.
So, okay, I find this funny because Nate, you are correct, but Dave, you are close. So, Nate, you are correct. The floor is not 0 fantasy points for Jameson Williams. However, in week 3 last year, he got you 0.7 in half PPR. And then in week 7, he got you 0.1. So,
see?
Exactly. Not 0. It's not 0, but there, I can understand.
What was some sub 10? How many did he go sub 10?
Sub 10 fantasy points he had in half PPR 1, 2, 3, 4 games. 5, 6 with the 0 points. So 6 games.
6 games. I mean, 6 out of 17. That's a pretty high ratio for sub 10. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying he's a bum. Don't get me wrong. He's great, and he probably had some weeks which were 30 plus points or what have you, right? But nevertheless, he right. Just may not get looks, especially in games where they're just running the ball. He's not going to be getting looks.
So it's funny that you mentioned that that specific thing. So one of the stats we like to look at is first read target percentage, because we want to see like which quarterbacks are locking into their primary wide receiver, and that kind of gives you an idea of okay, who's the receiver that you want to start or like adjust in your rankings and whatnot. On the flip side, the lower the percentage kind of gives you an indication of like, okay, he doesn't lock into his first read, he locks into like everybody, and so there is a little bit of variability there. And Jared Goff last week had the 4th lowest first read percentage. So that's indicative of him just like, I'm just going to throw it everywhere I can, but at the same time, you look at the matchup against Green Bay. I mean, they were applying so much pressure. I mean, I think it was like one of those, like, I'm going to throw it everywhere because I don't want to get sacked, or like killed, behind the line of scrimmage. So there is some to that. So it's gonna be interesting to see where that first read percentage goes this week. I like Warren, I don't like the fact that Kenneth Gainwell, it was only 4 attempts rushing behind him last week, but we saw that Warren was used in the receiving game. So give me Warren here for this PPR matchup.
Gainwell's been in the league for what, 4 years, 5 years, and I don't know. He's an okay back, but he's not someone who I'm worried about all of a sudden being some stud and taking over as the, workhorse running back one.
All right, let's get to the next question. We got Miles. Oh, sorry, Nate. Niles production. Keenan Allen, Tony Pollard, Keenan Allen for PPR.
Easy.
All right. Moggs is in the chat. Moggs, welcome back. He says, I may need to tear down from Caleb Williams. Also need an RB2. Highest pick is only have for Dynasty is a 2026 second, and then until 27. Any advice of who to target from Caleb and cheap RB2s to buy with the number 2 pick next year?
I don't want to. I'm not as high on Caleb. Like we were talking about the accuracy, but I think the fantasy floor is still decently stable as long as he can still utilize his athleticism. I mean, yes, we're always searching to have a top 6 quarterback. I think that maybe temper right now just enough to get people are looking for people to sell low on Caleb, I think, as a whole. And I don't think you'll get the return that you're asking for. At least that's my valuation of, the stocks and bonds approach of Caleb Williams.
All right,
I think it's one thing to keep in mind is just trying to be rational about week 1 results. Our sample size is 1 game, so it's so easy to overreact. But yeah, I think Caleb looked decent last week. By the end of the game, the whole Chicago Bears offense was crumbling. But that first half, man, I mean, he was looking sharp. First drive, I think he'd threw for 7 out of 7 and a tutty, right? So, what more do you ask than that?
All right, we got a few more questions before we get into our fantasy flex segment. We got Tootsie Pop in the chat. Tootsie Pop 6. Good morning. Singleton or Matabuki? Singleton, just a dominant linebacker, always giving you tackle numbers. So give me Alex Singleton. And then in a guillotine league, Mac Jones or Joe Flacco. I would go with Flacco.
Flacco for me.
All right. We have another question, non-PPR from Mr. Scampers. Devonta, JSN, or T-Mac. I will always in this scenario go with T-Mac. He means Stream McBride. Okay, never mind.
What? He does? That means
I thought he meant Trace
Tetora McMillan.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
Well, there we there we go. I'd still go JSN though.
Yeah.
JSN's the obvious one.
Yeah,
right.
for me too.
Let's see here. And then let's see here. We have Stigley 73 needing a better kicker after a bad showing from Tyler Bass last week. Start Jake Moody or Tyreek Hill?
So defensive, the bad showing. Yes. Tyler Bass was on the IR.
Jake Moody's cut.
Jake Moody got cut. So
I was going to say, am I missing something? Did I see you got
the Tyreek Hill kicking now? I don't understand
what
this one.
is going on?
Then there you go. I'm
going to answer this question. Tyreek Hill. So whatever your other kicking option is besides Jake Moody, go with that one.
If you need kicking points for Tyreek Hill, that might be tough, but
he would have got the same amount as Tyler Bass last week and Jake Moody this week. So ultimately, it's the exact same. DeAndre Swift or David Montgomery.
Is Tyler Bass on a team? I didn't think so.
He was on the Bills,
Buffalo.
but then he got
He's
injured.
on IR.
And that's why they brought in the kicker last week, and he won the game.
Matt Prater,
yeah.
Dude, Matt Prater used to be the number one kicker back in 2013 when it was he was there in Detroit, but do you remember his Bronco days? I mean, he was
kicking 60 yarders for 50 plus yarders in that era. It was great. And as far as Swift and Montgomery, I want Swift over Montgomery myself.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, Swift.
Interesting.
I mean, Swift looked fantastic.
I personally, I think that David Montgomery, we're going to see just my 2 cents. Of course, I think that the David Montgomery usage is going to taper off just a little bit. And last week, maybe an indicator with the fact that it could be more goal line work even for Jahmyr Gibbs, or at least within the 20 red zone work. And that's always been David Montgomery's floor stability.
All right, let's get into some fantasy flex, folks.
So fantasy flex for all the viewers, if you watched last week or you're new, I'd like to try to take a look at some of the players that, number one, I guess we're anticipating maybe in some of the flex questions, maybe in some of your start sit questions, trying to look at those ECR bubbles of players that, let's get some discussion. Maybe this will help guide some of your answers. And what I did this week is break it down position by position. We're going to take a look at some of the notable flex plays, maybe added around the end of the startable roster spots. So at like quarterback yes,
what is ECR? For the folks?
Oh, for the folks, ECR is the Fantasy Pros collective rankings.
Collective rankings, gotcha.
Yes. So they take a list of, I don't know how many it's up to. Was there 200 plus
ECR?
rankers now?
Yes, it's high. It's like definitely closer to 200. Expert consensus rankings, if you want to be
there we go.
Technical there.
I don't like. Yeah, I'm in that, and to use the word expert always is kind of like, well, that ruins that when you throw people like myself into the mix. But at quarterback, guys, I know. I was 50th last week or something.
44.
So, hey, that's 44. That's good. I'll take that. All right, guys.
Didn't you win the Fantasy Pros comp a couple of years back? I've got like number one where they sent you to LA.
Well, that wasn't for that. That was just a fantasy trophy smack competition. But
gotcha.
I've done okay in IDP over the years, and I was tied in I was number one for tight end. So I guessed correctly for the most weeks out of anybody. Can you guys guess correctly out of these three quarterbacks of which one you would start between Patrick Mahomes, the ECR QB 9 against the Eagles, Dak Prescott, the ECR QB 11 against the Giants, or Baker Mayfield, the QB 12 against the Houston Texans? Dave, of those three, which are you leaning?
I mean, come on. It's still Patrick Mahomes, guys. Yeah, I know he doesn't have his studs. He's got Hollywood Brown as his one, but yeah, look, he got a rushing touchdown last week, and it was a fantastic one as well. He's starting to hit the ground a lot more. He's still got Travis Kelce. I mean, he's got a decent lineup. Juju's not bad. Hollywood can get the job done. They just got to get their run game to give Patrick a little bit more, I guess, opportunity to throw the ball rather than getting blitzed every 2 seconds. But yeah, it's Patty Mahomes. I mean, the talent's there. Always trust the talent.
I am probably Chiefs fans. Close your ears, of course, because my answer in that is Dak, as NRU agree, against the Giants. That is not the only reason. I love that reason, of course. I really worry about this matchup against the Eagles for the Chiefs. The pass rush is concerning, especially the left side of that offensive line. Simmons is going to be great, but that Kingsley has been a liability on the interiors. It's again 1 game sample size, I know, but that's the only thing that bothers me is they need to establish the run. Dave hit the nail on the head. Need to establish a run game to get the passing game going, and they haven't done that, and it didn't look like they wanted to yet. But I'm hoping I'm wrong. I hope, because Mahomes was one of my pass plays from our Fourth and Frame show on Wednesday night, 10 p.m. for all viewers.
I know we'll get into it later, but what are you doing with that running back field in Kansas City? The whole Pacheco, Hunt. I mean, are you doing anything with them? Are you playing them?
No, I really thought it would be Pacheco, but the schedule does get a little bit easier after like week 9. It's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's a tough start. So I say Prescott. Dave says Mahomes. Jorge, please don't say Baker and just make this completely a wash. But then again, maybe do.
I can see him.
Move on.
He's thinking Baker.
So I anticipate this quarterback. Not only does he say, "Here we go" at the line of scrimmage a lot, but I can anticipate today, of all days, which I believe the game is in Dallas, if memory serves me correctly. I could see him dropping back and either throwing it to Pickens or CeeDee Lamb and just going, "All right, y'all, time to suck some Dak," and then he throws like a bomb touchdown.
What? God, yeah. What happened here?
What? I didn't say it for real. I'm just saying, I just said the expression there.
Is that an expression that he says?
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Well, maybe he'll start. After I just gave him a gem. So
there you go, Dak. That's the way to get canceled.
That was a left field one.
Take Jorge's.
It's just coffee,
thanks, man. Yeah, just wow. Ao is right, Moggs. All right, let's I don't know how to segue from that. Yeah.
We're all thinking of Moggs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess I have a segue. So same.
That was a pause moment if I've ever heard one.
I'll start with you. Let's continue on with the quarterback position. Maybe this is some of the guys who might fill in for Brock Purdy-esque if you're a Purdy manager. And we're talking Caleb Williams, the QB 17 against Detroit. JJ McCarthy, the QB 16 against Atlanta, or Bo Suck My Knicks, the QB 13 against the Colts.
What are we doing?
Is that one?
This is a show primarily for children, okay?
Ain't no children up this early.
Well, we're to be fair, we do act like children a lot, so that kind of does count a little bit.
That's true. There was a question built into that.
Yes.
Terrible segue, by the way, which is Caleb Nix or McCarthy. Dave, I'll let you start.
This is tough because McCarthy disappointed the first half, but looked great the second. I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt and say it was, growing pain. I wouldn't call it growing pains. It was just him getting warmed into the NFL. I really liked what I saw the last 2 quarters. I'm going to risk it with McCarthy.
Sterling blames me. What in the world? What? I was so much more. I guess not. I'm sorry, Charlene. But yeah, headphones in. Hope it didn't read lips. I'll do the.
I think we just lost like 30 viewers.
We've gained actually like 75. So you know what? There's more degens like us than there are. So which, by the way, thank you, Ken, in the chat. He says, I've known Jorge too long. He got that reference to me. It's from Family Guy when they were spoofing Empire Strikes Back, where, you know, in the real Star Wars movies, you know, Luke Skywalker has his friend Dak who dies in the first spoiler. Although it's really a spoiler, he dies in the first movie by Darth Vader when they're flying the TIE fighters. And so in the Family Guy thing of Empire, he goes up to he's like, I know we need somebody to, you know, to be a distraction for the Empire while we get the launches and evacuate the planet. And Dak's like, I got this. And so he rolls up in his little X-wing or whatever, and he's like in front of like 20 Star Destroyers, and he's like, all right, folks, time to suck some Dak. And then they immediately blow him up. So yes, thank you, Ken, for getting that reference that I just explained that probably nobody else.
You should lead with that next time.
Nobody gets Star Trek references.
It's not
Star Wars or Trek.
I've never. I know what it is. I just did that to make it. You know what? Here, screw you. You want to talk about like I didn't know? Look, 1 second, please. These are the socks I'm wearing.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, tell me. See, sorry. And the other
I've never seen a single Star Wars. What is there, like 7 of them, 8 of them, something like that?
36. If you count.
Are you kidding?
There's not 36. Yes, I'm kidding. All right, next question. Or just answer the question, first of all. Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy.
I did. McCarthy. We were so focused on the suck some Dak thing that I answered. I said McCarthy looked bad in the first half, but I liked what I saw in the second. So I'm going to risk it with McCarthy.
See, it sounds more gross when an Australian accent says it. See, that sounds just sexualized. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Charlene's son is. She
probably doesn't have my fake Texas accent.
Exactly. All right, let's
go. I'm going McCarthy.
Football, y'all.
Yeah, I'm going McCarthy. We look at Atlanta; they had the 11th worst pass rush. Things haven't gotten better in that department. So give me JJ McCarthy.
It's close between him and Nix. I'll lean McCarthy too. I think we saw enough out of the legs that, you know, that helps support that floor. It doesn't separate him too much. But go to Juan's question before we get off the rails completely.
So let's go to a second question, because you specifically were talking about this on Fourth and Frames, and like you were saying, our redraft show, our weekly show here, one of our weekly shows, but on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. He's asking Harold Fannin Jr. or Juwan Johnson. Explain to the folks why you are in on the person that you are in, please.
I like Juwan Johnson. I'm the Juwan Johnson supporter, as far as especially maybe just this week or this and next week going forward. I think the mouth to feed scenario in Cleveland, albeit it granted is really, really nice against Baltimore, but typically that's the wide receiver spot that eats against Baltimore. Not to say that the tight end position can, especially when you're being utilized like a wide receiver. But when you're talking about pecking order, I still feel like it's Judy, Tillman, Fannin, and Njoku. And while Fannin had a higher target share last week, I think each one cannibalizes each other. Whereas in New Orleans, there's not as much cannibalization outside of Chris Olave to Juwan Johnson, and hopefully that changes, because Alvin Kamara was not involved in the passing game. That Spencer Rattler had 46 pass attempts, and 2 went to Kamara. I mean, it was way too low. I hope it gets away from that. But I'm Juwan Johnson for myself for that. And then his first question was?
This first question was AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, or DJ Moore. Pick 2. Immediately my mind went not AJ Brown, which that I don't know if that's something to pay attention to season long, but not feeling this situation here. So really, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, or DJ Moore. Give me the in-betweens. Give me Harrison and Garrett Wilson.
I'm gonna agree with you on Garrett Wilson. Justin Fields looked so much better then
Right.
I think, I think everybody was so hung up on the preseason that there was not even a chance to be given. Now, maybe he looks so good because the expectations were so low, but I don't think that was the case. I mean, we saw Garrett Wilson absolutely peppered. If Breece Hall can maintain his explosiveness and look as good as he did, I think the offense can actually, continue to move the chains and actually be a solid production for both targets, volume from Garrett Wilson and company. But I am leaning AJ Brown. I don't love it, but the likelihood is that while he was pretty much non-existent in last week, I don't know. There's a risk. I don't know what it is about, but his success against Kansas City has been pretty dominant. It's been really good. And I've watched it firsthand. Just seems like his physicality against the physical defense is what has been the shifting point. Like I think the offense in Philly knows that they need to do that, establish the physicality against the Chiefs. And while it's close, I'm going to lean AJ Brown and Garrett Wilson.
All right. Juan has another question. Who for my wide receiver 1 and 2 in flex spots? So 3 spots we got to think about here. Devontae Adams, Hollywood, Calvin Austin, Quentin Johnston, Kayshon Boutte, Travion Henderson, Nick Chubb, or Charbonnet. So do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Devontae is one for me for the wide receiver for sure.
So it's funny that you mentioned that because the stat that I was throwing out a little bit earlier, as far as like quarterback first read percentage and like which quarterbacks lock into their first read target. Matthew Stafford led the league last week in first read target percentage, and his number 1 read was Puka. So that gives me a little bit of concern here. To what you and Erika were saying earlier, I understand the targets going to Hollywood Brown last week. Calvin Austin, great touchdown, great pass play. Far from somebody that I need to see a lot more from before I can be there. QJ, he had a great game last week, but even you were saying the other day that one of those touchdowns, he basically like stepped in front of the other receiving option to catch it. So it's like, okay, what are we skewing? What are we not skewing here?
Yeah.
We saw Boutte with his 6 for 103, I believe. Travion, Nick Chubb. We talked about Nick Chubb and why we're not in on Nick Chubb. And so Henderson or Charbonnet. I would go Adams, Boutte, and he doesn't say if it's a PPR or not, but I would go Charbonnet. I really am high on Charbonnet, to be honest with you folks.
Okay. And just not to squell what you had mentioned about Stafford and first reads, which is a true statement. But that being said, Devontae Adams still had a near 30% first read share last week. So it wasn't like it was only Puka and then he broke down the first read opportunities to 4 different players. It was pretty much his 29% still would rank extremely high amongst all receivers as far as that first read share, and a 27.5% target share overall. Those are too easy for me. But again, we both agree. I'm not trying to debate you. And
no, I want Adams. Yeah, of course. I'm just trying to say, like, we all know who this offense runs through in the passing game first and foremost. And that's Puka. But yeah, so who do you want to pick? And then we'll get David's opinion.
If it is PPR, I'll go Adams, Hollywood, and Henderson. If it's half point, even if it's half point, I think I'll still stay the same. Dave.
All right. So Dave, you need 2 wide receivers and a flex.
Adams, Hollywood, and I'm going to go, believe it or not, Quentin Johnston. Kind of like what we saw out of him last week, and he's getting looks. Yeah, it's a little bit of a flyer, but I think it's worth the risk.
Gotcha.
All right, we got Moggs in the chat again. Moggs, were you on 4th and Frames last week? I want to say you were.
Yes.
So thank you very much for tuning in. Half PPR, Hollywood or Mooney in the flex. Mooney's just coming back from injury, so it's Hollywood for me.
I agree.
All right.
Moggs, I do agree. Moggs says Fields trolled everyone. Yeah, perfect. It was the Jamar Chase-esque trolling from a couple years back where he couldn't make any catches.
because you couldn't see the stripes. Yeah,
right. Just balling with Jays. Brees looks like he's back. He does. I think anybody that had an opportunity to get Brees Hall is getting significant, really good value out of that right now. And then Moggs thinks that OSU chemistry is real, though. And yeah, I'm right there with you guys. So, all right, Jorge, you were saying let's get back to the next matchup.
So I'm sorry to interrupt here. I just want to give a shout out here to Just Balling with Jay. Met him at the expo this week. You can follow him at Just Balling with Jay on Instagram. He is a fantastic artist, and what he does is he kind of melds art with fantasy football. And you should see some of the imagery that he's able to put on like shirts or just in general. Like it is some very unique stuff that you have to go check out. So Just Balling with Jay on Instagram, and I believe that's also on his YouTube channel. So go check that out. But I'm sorry about that.
No. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to have one of the shirts. I still am in the process of making sure. I keep forgetting to actually go forward with that, because I saw Bob Lung, he had one on, I think it was Thursday when I got there, and I even noticed it. Maybe it was Friday, and he mentioned, and then we got the chance to, for anybody that hasn't been to the expo that's going to go to the expo, the highlight of every year for myself is Sunday night. After everything's winding down, we sit around the fire outside the hotel and really just hang out. And that's when I got the opportunity to hang out the most with Jay, and we had a great time. Appreciate it. So, all right, guys,
check it out on Instagram. That looks cool. I like
dope, isn't it?
The Action Genty one looks sick.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's really solid. It is. All right, David Montgomery. So here we're going to move to the running back position, and this is some redundancy with some of the questions. Some of the names, not shocking, are the ones that we've seen in a lot of the flex questions. But David Montgomery, Montgomery against the Bears, Tyler Warren against the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker against the Steelers. Dave, you want to start us off?
Can we go through the options again?
Of course.
Here we go.
David Montgomery against the Bears. Jaylen Warren. I said Tyler Warren. Sorry. Jaylen Warren against the Seahawks, or on the opposite side of that game, Kenneth Walker against the Steelers.
I'm going to go with Walker out of them. I mean, we kind of touched on Montgomery and his usage, and I expect that to go down. I still think it's a bit of a split backfield there, but he's still going to get looks. So, he's a pass catching back. He's a north-south runner. Limited opportunities, but he'll get it done.
Jorge?
I am also going to go with Montgomery, although I want to look up his red zone stats just really quickly before I give you like a Montgomery versus like I think I want to go with Montgomery. And I think the folks out there will appreciate that. So with attempts, is this right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is kind of interesting. So in attempts inside the 20, Montgomery had one. Wow. And Jahmyr Gibbs had two. Now 1 versus 2, like, what am I really saying, right? Is that really indicative of what we're expecting all year? I'm still going to lean Montgomery. Until I can see Jahmyr Gibbs is taking all the short yardage work, especially within inside the 5-yard line or 10-yard line, I'm still going to roll with Montgomery.
The only reason why I'm saying that the overreact versus don't overreact is why you mentioned, 2 versus 1. What does it mean? What it means is up until last week, we never saw that. You never saw Jahmyr Gibbs out snapping David Montgomery in within the 20s, the 10s, or the 5s. That was David Montgomery's honey hole. And if you take that aspect away, what you have is you have a person getting maybe 12 touches and getting somewhere around 30 to 45 yards, and he's out of your lineup every week. But it's still David Montgomery. I'm not completely, selling out on him, but I'm seeing maybe a trend in the wrong direction for people that want to feel comfortable starting David Montgomery going forward. But go ahead to the next question. You got one from an IDP question, it looks like.
Yeah, we got Midway Monsters IDP. Woodson from New England or Adebo from the Giants. So I'm always going to go safety first with cornerback is such a tough position to predict from week to week. You really have to look at alignments here. And so one of the things that does make looking at a cornerback kind of, in terms of, okay, well, if I had to pick a cornerback, who would I pick as my cornerback? And we like to see a lot of slot snap percentages because they get, slot wide receivers tend to get peppered more often than not. And we like to see the box snaps. Like how often are these cornerbacks coming to assist in run support? So the more multifaceted a cornerback is, the better their chances are for making plays, even though it is a very highly unpredictable position. That being the case, Andrew Phillips had 11 box snaps and 47 slot snaps. Paulson Adebo had 8 box snaps and 3 slot snaps. So for me, it's Woodson.
There you go.
We got Nikki in the chat. What's up, Nikki? PPR pick 2. Njoku, Juwan Johnson, Hunter Henry, Fannin, or Wandale. Thank you very much. Nate, what are your thoughts here?
So, one, we talked about Juwan Johnson earlier. I'm still going to lean Johnson over everybody else there. The second one then is the trickier of the two, or of the three, or of the four, I guess. Do I want a piece of that Cleveland offense that I do feel that against Baltimore, especially against their, usually it's their wide receivers. Like I said, wide receivers usually had last year and even going into this year had feasted on Baltimore secondary. Does Njoku and Fannin, using the term, cannibalize each other again? I feel like Fannin is probably the most likely to capitalize on what we saw last week, which was that, leading the team in targets and being heavily utilized. So I would say Fannin and Juwan Johnson. Dave, do you feel different between either one of those two, or?
I like Hunter Henry.
Okay.
I still think that Drake May is going to look his way. I agree with you with Juwan Johnson this week. I do like Juwan Johnson, but Hunter Henry is still one of the top options in New England. I know it's not saying much, but I think those two get looks.
Jorge?
So picking 2 here. I'm going to go with Hunter Henry just for the rationale that Dave just gave. Yep. And you know what? I'm going to give Mr. trying to redeem himself from last year, Wandale Robinson, the nod here. We saw 8 targets behind Malik Neighbors' 12, which was similar to last year. Only difference is he's catching higher than 30% of his options here. He caught 75% of his passes. So I think maybe we're seeing an increase in productivity there from Wandale. So Hunter Henry and Wandale Robinson for me.
Sorry, Nikki. That seems to be more.
So no help whatsoever.
Yeah. No help. Exactly. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck.
Ask us some more questions. We'll hopefully
right. Yeah. I'll give you all kinds of random answers.
Supported answers though.
Supported, yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. All right. Willpower. Will, what's going on? Which, first of all, he is rocking some Fantasy and Frame swag. This is what happens, folks, when you listen to our podcasts, as well as tune into our live stream of podcasts, where we have the Waiver Wire Watch Party tomorrow. We got our Dynasty 365 podcast, our first week every month until we get into the January, spring months, and we're weekly. We got Shoot the Gap, our IDP show, where Will was very supportive of us last year. And then we have 4th and Frames at 10 o'clock Eastern. Got Rider Dynasty on Thursdays at 7 p.m. So we got a lot of shows, and plus we got this show here. So Will, thank you very much for supporting Fantasy and Frames. And to get to your question, 2 questions for you guys. Pick 2 to flex. Mark Andrews, RJ Harvey, McLeod, Tucker, Jordan Mason in full PPR. Let's get with this first question. Dave, why don't you start us off here?
I'm not sold on Harvey as much. Jordan Mason surprisingly looked really good. Andrews is just, he's tough to trust, to be honest. I'm going to go with Jordan Mason. I mean, he was looking sharp last week, so I'm going to give him a shot. And the other one, I assume, is a you question, Jorge.
Oh, well, you have to pick 2. You have to pick 2. You have to pick 2.
Oh, 2. Sorry. Okay. Tucker. It's got to be Tucker. Tucker and Mason. I mean, they looked the sharpest. They had the most opportunity out of them last week. I mean, honestly, Andrews, if he keeps going, he might be a drop candidate, man. I mean, he's just not looking sharp. And I thought, especially with Isaiah Likely out last week, that he would get a lot of looks, but he's just not the same guy we knew from 3-4 years ago.
I'm gonna stick with Andrews. We look at the Bengals last week and how much they were carved up by the tight end position. So I think Mark Andrews has one of his good games this week. And I actually like Jordan Mason in this game, to be honest with you. I was really impressed with what he did last week. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I'm the same. Jordan Mason was one of my smash plays from the Fourth and Frame show. He had a higher snap share than Aaron Jones, had more carries, out carried him 15-8. Still ran fewer routes, but 100% of the red zone snaps. Even if it gets like 50-50 split, Mason's explosiveness really was just on display. And I think the Vikings, they should lead these games. And if that's the case, I expect a heavier workload of Jordan Mason against an aging Aaron Jones, even in some of the garbage time. So, yeah, Jordan Mason. And then my second one, I'll lean Mark Andrews. And then, Jorge, go ahead if you want.
So
Devin White.
Yeah.
You read it.
So he has a IDP question. Should I play Devin White, Tyrell Dodson, Nate Landman, or Servassier Dennis over Bernard? Is Bernard washed? I'll start with the second portion of that. Yes, Bernard is washed. You look at his coverage grades last year, just horrible. We had to see Dorian Williams come in and help him out on third down. So that was not great as an indicator. I am all aboard the Servassier Dennis, Pastor Servassier. We saw him finally get the opportunities as one of the starting linebackers. And I also like Landman if I had to pick a number 2 there, but it's definitely Dennis over Bernard as my top option there. Will.
Nice. Love it. All right. Well, we'll get back into some of the would you rather fantasy flex. I'm using this as a choose your adventure type book. Dave, did you have those books? Remember the choose your adventure where you would go and then it would say if you want the person to catch the train or whatever. Here's the morality question of it all. Did you ever, when you realized you didn't like the result of your choosing your adventure, go back and say, redo, or I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to pick the one that I like better?
Probably, but I usually do try and stay the path. No, you chose it. See what it leads to.
That's a good life lesson. Is you choose your path, stay on it, and then whatever shortcomings you get, you use those to, do better the next time. In this case, it would be choosing a different adventure. And maybe that's what we're going to do. Maybe you have it. Jorge, you're on page number 19, and it's saying you must deploy one of these running backs as your flex spot in a must-win matchup. And you have to choose Javonte Williams against the Giants, Jordan Mason against the Falcons, or Travion Henderson. And this would be in a half-point PPR scoring league.
Travion Henderson. Like I said, I think Miami gets back on track here with this. They're too talented to not do anything. Although I will give the caveat here. The Dolphins are going to be without their right tackle this week, who's dealing with injury. In fact, the entire Dolphins offensive line is banged up. Going against a pass rusher like Harold Landry, that doesn't bode well for Mr. Tagovailoa there. Which I don't get where they get where he gets the Tunga from, because that's nowhere near. It's more like Tagovailoa than Tagovailoa. Whatever. I'm not going to judge. I mean, a little bit of judging, but not going to judge a lot.
Do we know how it's correctly pronounced?
Tagovailoa.
Yeah, that's how they say it. I don't know where the G's at, but then again, I also don't speak. I don't know the term for how it is in Hawaii, so I don't want to.
I'm right there with you. That's why I'm not going to.
Is he Hawaiian or is he just Polynesian?
God damn it! See, I just insulted all the Polynesians of the world. So,
you might have. You don't know for sure. So there's maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Anyhow, I'm going Travion still, regardless.
There you go. All right. And Jay says Travion Henderson as well. I'm really close. You know what? I'm not. I'm going to stick with Jordan Mason so I'm not a hypocrite, because if he's one of my smash plays, I need to stick with him.
I'm going Mason as well. I think Henderson is hyped more than those stupid Labubu toys. You know, he's decent. I know he did great at Ohio. I'm a Patriots fan. I'm just telling you, I just don't trust the offense. I just don't think the Patriots are going to be in a position to use him properly. You know, just it's like what we saw on Saquon going from the Giants to the Eagles. It was a good system, good fit. This is not a good fit for Travion Henderson.
I will say though, this is going to be a good test for Javonte. Now, if he, last week you saw Jalen Carter get ejected before the game even started, or before they even took an offensive snap. Yeah, I don't know if you heard about this. He wasn't there, and then the running game up the gut for the Cowboys was very successful without Jalen Carter in the middle. Well, now he's got Dexter Lawrence, and so if they're able to get some push and be able to get rid of Dexter Lawrence causing any havoc up the middle in the running game, now you're starting to sell me on Javon, and Aiden Weingarter here will get some props here. But for now, I'll go with Hendo, and it sounds like you're going with Mason. Yes,
I'll never give Javonte Williams his props in Dallas, other than I'll give the Dallas team props for adjusting to a game without Jalen Carter, because I've said it before. There's no doubt in my mind that there is zero chance that they went into that game saying we're going to run the ball at Jalen Carter and be successful, or even continue to do it. And they were quasi, at least for 2.2 quarters, they were pretty successful going up the gut. So
can I make a confession on air? I need to get this off my chest. Come on, please. Let me make this confession. I am not a Cowboys fan. I'm a Commanders fan. So therefore I want all pain and misery to go to Cowboys fans and Cowboys, in general. However, I'm a huge Marty Schottenheimer fan. And I don't know if you saw the expose they did on Brian Schottenheimer and how he was going to dedicate this first game last week in week 1 to his dad. And even Jerry Jones is alluding to that comment later. Man, like, I have no love for the Giants. So, I mean, for Marty, that's all I got to say. That's my confession right there.
Yeah, Marty Ball. That's weak confession, but whatever. Thought it was going to be something spicier than that after all your Dak comments, but whatever. All right, let's go to a spicier wide receiver triumvirate of choices here, because each one of these three pose a different scenario of highs and lows. Let's go with Tetairoa McMillan against the Arizona Cardinals, Tyreek Hill against Dave's Patriots, or Hollywood Brown against the Super Bowl champion Eagles. Dave, I'll start with you.
I'm sticking with Tyreek Hill. Once again, McMillan, he's good, but terrible offense. I mean, hate to say it, but Bryce Young, it's kind of looking like the Bryce Young we're used to. So I just don't know if he's going to get the looks, to be honest.
Didn't you just say don't use one game as a sample size?
I know, but I'm just saying it just looks a little bit like
it looks
that.
Terrible.
It doesn't look great. No. I'm a big Bryce Young fan. I was kind of hoping he would start off this year off with a bang, but they were just struggling all 4 quarters. There wasn't anything where I could say it was a close game or they look good. So look, Tyreek's still Tyreek, and I think he's going to feast. They'll still get him the ball, however long he is going to be in Miami for. So trust the talent. Go with Tyreek.
It's McMillan for me. I mean, when my main competition is Xavier Legette, which, no disrespect to a former first-round pick, who was supposedly going to be AJ Brown light heading into the draft a couple seasons ago, it's McMillan. It's the target share. 9 targets last week, 5 receptions, 68 yards. And what I think is going to be a game where they're going to be playing a lot of catch up. I think Arizona is going to kind of assert their dominance in the receiving game, as well as, in every facet, to be honest with you, just because Carolina's defense is just so poor. McMillan's just going to see so much target volume. For me, it's McMillan.
This is going to make it worse, is because I think if it's half point PPR. So I made that caveat with the running back. I'll stick with that, and I'll go with McMillan. I want to say Hollywood to be optimistic, but I want to go back. Dave, this isn't me. This is me and you being buddies and can do fun things like this. But how many games did we see Jameson Williams last year? Jorge, you said he had under 10 points or nearly 0 in 6 of them?
In half PPR scoring, yeah.
In half PPR. So in half PPR scoring, the aforementioned Tyreek Hill, who was Tyreek Hill, had, and tell me which number is higher, 8 games under 10 points. 8 is higher. So Tyreek Hill or Jamison Williams?
I'm going Tyreek Hill. We can all agree Tyreek had his worst year last year. Out of what, like 7, 8 years he's had in the league, he's killed it on 7 of them. So I'm trusting the talent. But look, I agree with you. Look, they missed Tua for how many games last year? Who they have as their quarterback? Sky Moore? No, Sky Moore. What's that guy? Skylar something. Thompson. Skylar Thompson.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said Sky Moore.
It could have been Sky Moore.
Might as well have been.
We haven't seen him on the Chiefs field. That's for sure. Maybe that's what he's
Who
doing.
knows?
Did he get released or traded recently? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he did. I think. Oh man, where'd he go? I don't remember exactly.
San Francisco, I think.
Jets, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, bad quarterback play. Team imploded last year. Yeah, I mean, he just had an off year. You got to write it off as hey, that's just not Tyreek-esque. So I'm trusting the talent. I'm going Tyreek.
I'm going Tyreek as well. The Patriots have last week, they were the 5th worst secondary for PFF. So yeah, give me Tyreek Hill and a bounce back.
They made Geno look like a stud. I think there was only 3 quarterbacks who threw for over 300 yards.
Yeah,
and Geno was one of them.
Yeah, he was so Buffalo, New England, New Orleans, and Cleveland all threw the ball more, and yet Geno was the one that had the volume. I
think he had the most yards out of everyone. It was like 384, 394 or something.
I thought it was like 333, but maybe it doesn't matter. Ultimately, I mean, he impressed me. I was very shocked in the total volume there. This answer here to these 3 wide receivers, I want to see how shocked I can be.
All right.
Keon Coleman against the Jets, Cedric Tillman against the Ravens, or Michael Pittman against Denver. Jorge?
So Pillman should get certain coverage. So that's going to fade him for me. Even though impressive stats last week from Daniel Jones, which, I mean, who would have thought that a couple of seasons ago? But Daniel Jones was PFF's number 5 best rated deep ball passer. We saw on deep passes, Michael Pittman, I believe, was in the top 10 in average depth of target, passes of 20 yards or more. Very cool. Definitely like the long-term output here or projections for Pittman going forward. Do not like the matchup, however, this week. I'm gonna go with my guy Cedric Tillman. I said it on the pregame show last week. He had a great matchup against the secondary, this Baltimore team. Shout out to Gary Davenport, the Godfather IDP, said on Shoot the Gap. Malachi Starks is going to help out a lot in the secondary just from a coverage perspective. So while that's the case, I think that hampers Jerry Jeudy more so than Cedric Tillman, even though we're starting to see Tillman assert himself more as the wide receiver 1 going back to last season before he injured his knee. So give me Tillman here in this situation.
I'm leaning Tillman as well. Dave?
Give me Coleman. 8 of 11 for 112 and a tutty. I mean, I know Josh Allen isn't going to throw like that every week, but hey, man, 11 targets and, the guy's catching the passes. I liked what I saw.
Yeah, if it wasn't just for the matchup against the Jets, it would be the offense tied with Keon Coleman. It's just which is why, don't get me wrong, I get to handpick these players that I throw into this conversation. So clearly I think they're all somewhat, each one has a wart that makes you want to lean the other direction. But I like having these conversations about some of these guys to help, lead the person to the water and teach them how to fish instead of just giving an answer. But this last one is the tight end spot. We talked a lot about Harold Fannin so far. So Harold Fannin against Baltimore, Brenton Strange against the Bengals, or Dalton Kincaid against the aforementioned Jets. Dave, I'll start with you this time.
I liked what I saw in Strange. He looked the more explosive player. They didn't play him as much as a blocking tight end. He was really more a receiver than a blocker that game. So I think they're going to feed him the ball more. Buffalo with tight ends, man. I mean, he's still got Dawson Knox there, and Kincaid's going to have a handful of like ball out games. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't know which one it is, and I don't want to take that chance.
Jorge?
I'm going to go with Mr. Doctor in this. Did you get that reference, by the way, Mr. Doctor?
Doctor Strange.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I don't know if you all saw in the intro video package we have here, I had one of the bullet points of what we're going to be talking about is getting as many movie references as we can into our analysis. And yes, that is exactly the reference I was going with, Doctor Strange. So give me Brenton Strange.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't that hard. That was pretty easy. So I like some more challenging ones to incorporate there.
Okay, all right, easy. I got you. All right, America. Okay,
I don't know who Doctor Strange is. I got to Google this right now. What's
Stop it. Now you're just messing with me. Come on, man.
I'm Googling it right now. I don't know what it is.
How about you should Loogle it? You ever Loogled anything before?
That I know. Great.
That's how you work a movie reference in, Jorge.
Great White Buffalo.
That was good.
Exactly. Motley Lou Incorporated.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorites there. But that wraps up our little jump down, would you rather, as we go right into the next segment, which is titled Fantasy Focus.
And where is his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
Oh, the tears that many people are having right now. Hold on.
Good kind. Tears.
Wipe them away. No, that's incorporate movie references even into sad things right there. But what's not is us being prognosticators, forecasters, etc. As we want to take a look at some scenarios, metrics, matchups, etc., where we focus on each game and try to figure out certain areas of the game that may need to be hyper focused. Let's look at something that may lead to you, the fantasy manager, getting that early waiver wire claim on a player that could be 1, 2, 3 weeks away from breaking out, a trade target that may benefit you in the future, or someone to get rid of in advance. You'd rather not be left holding the bag, as they say. Correct?
You know what? We were talking about just My Girl in the thing. I didn't realize this is My Girl too. I refuse to watch it.
There is a My Girl too. Yeah.
I don't want to watch it.
Really?
I want to leave the original where it is. It's like, okay, you want some controversy? Happy Gilmore 2 is so overrated. It was just they should have just left Happy Gilmore as a cult classic where it is. Like Anchorman. Anchorman should have been a one and done.
Look, if you were expecting Gilmore 2 to be on par with Gilmore 1, then of course you're going to be disappointed. But
no, I didn't expect it to be on par. But I mean, there's no reason. I mean, what's some number 2 movies that are better? Terminator 2, I think is better than Terminator 1.
Wrath of Khan for Star Trek.
I haven't seen that.
Oh my God!
So,
are there Trekkers in this chat? Come on, please.
Hold on. You're onto something, because I do have a little something here. According to Rotten Tomatoes, these are the highest rated tomato meter sequels. Doesn't mean it has to be the second, could be even the third in some areas. Please get your answers in the chat if you think you know any of the top ones, and I will start going. They are very volatile, but if we learned anything, no one would have guessed number 1, I don't believe, is Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again. A 100. No, it's not. Nope. Scratch that. Whoop, that's number 100. Thank God. I thought that was a 100 Rotten Tomato score. I was going to be very disappointed. All right, Nate, learn how to do this. Let's get to it. Will has a question for you, Jorge, in that league that he has Terrell Bernard. It's a best ball. He can drop him if he doesn't perform today and add a linebacker for the late games. Should he cut bait and start Nate Landman, or pick up Broom, Servatier Dennis, or you're on mute, Brobo?
Rookie mistake. I am going to stick with my guns and go Servatier Dennis. Christian Roseboom. He was basically the de facto only linebacker last week. I'm a huge fan of Nate Landman in his situation in Los Angeles. We know Los Angeles likes to deploy a majority of the time just one linebacker, so he definitely should get a lot of work. But again, this Tampa Bay defense is scary. It is a defense that if my players are playing against them, I'm a little bit concerned. each and every week. So give me Servassier Dennis here.
There you go.
Die Hard 3 is better than Die Hard 1. Just throwing it out there.
I love Die Hard 3. That is, yeah. Are you aiming for these people? Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
And I agree. The Empire Strikes Back might be one of the, but I mean, Godfather 2 is probably the most common answer that many people give as far as best sequels to something, just because the baseline is so high. But yeah, there you go. There's plenty of others, obviously. If you have
Let's get
anything
some comments in the chat. What's a sequel that's better than the original?
Yes, and while you do that, we'll answer this question for Epic Fail, which is defensive tackle league, Jorge. Leonard Williams versus Pittsburgh, Carl Granderson versus San Francisco. Start there.
I love Carl Granderson. You know, they switched to having him be an outside edge rusher where he's standing up versus having his hand in the quote unquote dirt, so to say, on the turf field. You know, he is somebody who I've been really high on the past few seasons. We saw last year was a bit of a down year, so people may have gotten the discount on him. But last week he came through with 6 total tackles and 2 sacks, quarterback hit, pass defensed. So in a tackle for a loss, like Carl Granderson is back to being that guy. So gotta love it. Carl Granderson here, and then is there a second part to this question here that I'm missing, or
It'll get there. Looks like Terrell Bernard versus the Jets, and when he decides to throw that in there for you, we'll get there. And Will says, "Holy crap, Granderson is available in my league. Should drop Demario Douglas for him."
Obviously, it depends on what your situation is at wide receiver, but I would assume that he is, far down the list there. So give me somebody like Granderson, who has, I think, more of a scoring upside in your mixed league there than Demario Douglas will have in his position.
All right, controversial, but take away the nostalgia. Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1. Not by much, but I think it's better.
I don't have a problem with that.
I like that. I like it. I love Home Alone 2.
I do too. So his other options besides Terrell Bernard is Servassier Dennis versus Houston or Levante David against Houston.
Roll with Dennis. Pass the Servassier is what I'm saying to everybody here.
Pass the Servassier, he says, which if there was a Ladies Man 2, I would watch it. It would not be as good as Ladies Man 1, but I would watch it for the nostalgia, which as we get older, folks, trust me, you hold on to everything you could that you remember when you were younger, because getting old sucks a big one. Speaking of getting older, Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns will face the Baltimore Ravens. It's a 45-point total, so it does say that there's going to be some scoring. Now, what I want to know is we got to figure out this target allocation in Cleveland. It's the area that I think that we can focus on. If it's a hodgepodge mix where last week we saw both Judy and Tillman get the same target share, what they do with it is then up to them, of course. And then we saw Harold Fannin monopolize the vast majority of the targets kind of unsuspectingly. I think we all suspected that he was going to have an impact, not to the degree that he did. And David Njoku took a back seat. Dylan Sampson gets worked in. So for myself, I want to see if they ever, and Jorge, you touched on earlier, first read targets. Do you think first read targets is something this week with Cleveland that we should focus on as a pathway to success for the pass catchers in this offense?
Well, if you're looking at last week's stats, the first read targets would be a little confusing, just because of the fact that basically Judy and him and Cedric Tillman had equal number of targets, which I believe was 8 last week. That being the case, there's part of a reason why you don't necessarily want to box score research and just go off a strict box score. Having some idea of like what happened in the game, and we saw Cedric Tillman in the second half really starting to get emphasized in this passing game. That's when he scored that touchdown. That's when he started making some more receptions, and we saw Joe Flacco really zero in on him. And again, going back to the last play of the game there for Cleveland, Joe Flacco wasn't trying to get that first down by throwing it to Jerry Jeudy or Harold Fannin or David Njoku. He was trying to get it to Cedric Tillman, except he coughed it up to give Cincinnati the W there. That being the case, I love Tillman. So I think it starts and ends with Tillman in this receiving game for the Cleveland Browns.
Before we jump to the next one, or before Dave, I give you the same question. I do want to ask this from Moggs here. Is he has a tier up advice as far as based off the receivers that he has right now, which is DeAndre Hopkins, Rashad Bateman, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darnell Mooney. I'll start by saying if it's a full point PPR, tiering up from Wan'Dale is tricky because I think he's in that wide receiver 3, 4, right? Really wide receiver 4 safe range. Like we know that almost 9 in a full point PPR, 9-10 points is almost going to be guaranteed. Probably won't eclipse 16. 17 might be like a high volume. I don't know if there's anybody that I'm tearing up from that. If it's half point PPR, I'll give one name, and we're going to get to him in a little bit too, and that's in Tennessee, and that's Elick Ayomanor, and kind of giving away the lead a little bit, but he led the Titans in that, what we talked about, first read targets, led the Titans in air yards. And I think that kind of unsuspecting is that he could, I don't think he overtakes Calvin Ridley, but I think he could be a sneaky, 1B, really the 2 option there if Cam Ward progresses and continues to get better over time. It's week 1. Won't, elaborate too much on that. But you guys have another target, maybe deeper, that you think is a tier up from any of the names? Because like I said, I don't know if this is a move up from Wan'Dale or Darnell Mooney, but it definitely is for D-Hop and Bateman, in my opinion. Dave, Jorge?
I agree with you with Wan'Dale. I love Wan'Dale Robinson. As far as the person I would tier up from him, going through the lower ECR rankings. I'm sorry, Dave. While you're looking this up, why don't you give your take real quick?
No, I was just going to make a comment about Hopkins. I mean, his numbers were so skewed by that touchdown. In what was probably one of the biggest shootouts of the year, he got 2 targets. And now he caught them, one of them being a touchdown. But I don't know if I want to go into games. We're talking about a floor of 0. As much as I hate to say it, like D-Hop's floor genuinely is 0 now. So he's someone that I just can't trust in a lineup. You're relying on garbage time touchdown or something like that.
So for me, if I was going to tier up here, I do like Ayomanor, like you were talking about, but I also like Romeo Doubs. We saw his performance the past couple weeks. Jordan Love is really emphasizing him going forward in this receiving game. Another name, tier up. If it wasn't for Shakir and Coleman, I would be very high on Josh Palmer, but there is Shakir and Coleman, so I guess I'll have to fade him.
Palmer he'll have his weeks. It's a tricky, and it's on the bench is what Moggs is saying. And so from a bench spot, now you're looking at bye week replacements and you're wanting to mix and match, and it's hard to ever push any of those guys in. So I do agree with that. And I do agree with what Jay says is that, like Cedric Tillman, the Joe Flacco, isn't going to work for long. And that's a concern I have with the entire Cleveland offense is when they make that switch, if it's to Dylan Gabriel, if it's to Shador, I think that's going to hurt the passing game completely just by the volume alone. I think that's gonna play into it. Let's go. Epic Fell has a couple questions here and get your guys' opinion on this. In a full point PPR, he wants to know Isaiah Pacheco, Keon Coleman, or Stephon Diggs. Dave?
You can immediately remove Pacheco. I don't want any part of Kansas City's backfield. This is a tough one between Coleman or Diggs. I mean, there's not too many targets in New England, and Diggs has the talent, but New England is just looking like what we expected them to look like. I'm probably going Coleman.
Jorge?
It's not. I would rank it Coleman, Diggs, Pacheco.
I will go also Coleman. Yes.
Yeah, I will as well. I'm tricky. Diggs scares me.
That's the thing. If it was like Booty, I would be all crazy. I would want Kayshawn, because the Miami defense is not great. At least their secondary.
You would take the Booty Man over Coleman? 11 targets, 8 catches.
But then you had Shakir and you had Palmer have 8 targets. So like, how do you know which week is going to be like the week you want, especially in the matchup? And if he is their wide receiver, if he is the top guy, right, then Sauce Gardner is going to be all over him, and that's a matchup I am not a huge fan of.
Which is true.
But at the same time, we saw the snap percentage be low for Diggs. We were discussing Kayshon Boutte. We were talking about Hunter Henry. We were talking about TreVeyon Henderson. Like, there's so many mouths to feed in that receiving game. And yeah, I would put TreVeyon Henderson ahead of Diggs in that pecking order. So I would just have to go with Coleman, but I don't like it.
No, I think the next question that he has is actually one that gives me more fits, which is, I'll get it here, Cortland Sutton against the Colts or Omarion Hampton against the Raiders on Monday night. And Jorge, I'll let you start with this one.
Yeah, the Raiders were ranked top number 8 in the NFL last week for PFF and run defense. That is a tough matchup there. Although we did see, going back to Jonathan Klanowski's article over at fantasyandframes.com, which you can still check out, Omarion Hampton had a 94% running back rush share. That is nothing to sneeze at as well. But even in a tough matchup last week, in terms of coverages and shells that Tennessee runs typically, we saw the Bo Nix Cortland Sutton connection. I'm not scared of the secondary for Indianapolis. It's more so the defensive line for Indianapolis that I'm more scared of and their proficiency. So give me Cortland Sutton versus Indy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm leaning Sutton. It's close. I really love, the usage for Hampton, but it's that hyper target to Sutton just seems like an easy, especially in full point PPR. Dave?
I don't think the Chargers they're not going to ground and pound this year. They're not looking to run the ball. I'm not saying Hampton isn't talented. I just think he's going to get the chances. I mean, how many rush attempts did he get? Was
15.
It 12, maybe? 15. It's okay, but I mean, considering he had 94% of the rush share, I mean, that's wild. We were talking about J.K. Dobbins and P.J. Harvey. J.K. had, R.J. Harvey, he had 48% of the snap share and got more rushing attempts than the clear-cut number 1 running back in L.A. So I just don't think he's going to get the opportunity, and I think Sutton is going to get the looks.
Yeah, I do lend the majority of the Chargers' reluctancy to run last week is the matchup. The Chiefs have been for 3-4 years running now one of the most difficult run game, or the past 2 really years. Prior to that, the Chiefs were a sieve against the running games, and now they have locked that up, and they've actually become pretty challenging to run against. But then again, the defense as a whole has been solid, and the Chargers pretty much dismantled every little piece they could. So I agree. It's hard to imagine a Harbaugh ran offense that isn't wanting to run the ball exclusively, and I still think they get back into it. But until they do, I would definitely lean Sutton in this situation. And Jay even mentions, with Tennessee, don't forget Chig. Love his streaming option this week for Okonkwo against the Rams. They were pretty susceptible against tight end last year. I think this year could be the exact same. Jorge, I only have Hutchinson and Watt at my defensive line position, so I think I got to pick up Granderson as he has dual designation on sleeper, which is always a bonus. Maybe drop Terrell Bernard for him and save Dennis for later if Douglas sucks. I have Booty. Good.
That's good.
That is. Will Hayes has a question for you guys, which is DeAndre Swift or David Montgomery. Didn't we had one like this before, right?
Easy one.
He didn't say. He said we had one like this, but it was for non-PPR. This one is for PPR.
Oh, I still lean Swift from.
I do too. Yeah, exactly.
And as Jay said, Keon Coleman didn't get the work really into the fourth quarter, which is true. He does look good. And then tier up advice targets from Kate Otten and Noah Gray should is addressed on rookie draft. That's tricky. Like, I was so high on Kate Otten last year because he finished 2023 strong, and I thought the target volume would at least lend to his upside. Gray, though, on the other hand, right now, if there's a chance at Kansas City this week, especially, it's a bench option. But if I'm trying to stop Philadelphia's pass rush, which is sad to say, it's only probably going to be a 3-man rush, and they'll be pretty successful against the interior line, I probably bring Gray out and I run multiple tight ends and try to, get some matchups, or at least establish. I would love to establish the run. I don't think they will, but it wouldn't shock me to see Gray with more routes run this week, or at least more snaps as a whole. But
are we worried about Kelsey?
No, not necessarily. But yeah, I think that we were all worried. I think that shows in his ADP, though, right? He dropped to the tight end like 5 or 6 during draft season. Am I more worried about him than I was before the season? No. Are we worried as a whole that he's not going to be the tight end 1, 2, or 3 this year? I was before the season. What did you think?
Yeah, look, I wasn't expecting him to be a Brock Bowers or what have you, but I thought he would do better than Warren in Indianapolis, to be honest. And, gun to my head now, probably could have, saved my draft picks. So you were picking Kelsey earlier, waited to get Warren and, got more depth at wide receiver or running back early in the draft.
Yep, exactly. Jorge, will you do me a favor? Will you jump to the next games for the focus? I have to do one thing, and I'll return in just a few seconds.
Sure. So the next game with a 49 over under is Jacksonville and Cincinnati. The Jaguars, they traded away Tank Bigsby this past week to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Does that do anything there?
I don't think so. The Eagles, they have Saquon and they got Shipley after him, and then they have Tootin. He becomes super cheap in Dynasty, though. So if Will Shipley ever got hurt, then that kind of helps ease paths to snaps, but not somebody that I'm giving up an arm and a leg for, if to be honest with you, or not even going after him at all. I'm sorry, Bigsby's, not Tootin's. But going to Tootin's workload now going forward, should he be rostered in most 10 or 12 league formats, given the fact that we saw the resurgence of Travis Etienne kind of assert dominance in this backfield? Is there any other running back here for the Jaguars people should be going after here, Dave?
Really, you've got Travis Hunter, you got Brian Thomas, you got Etienne. You shouldn't be looking at anyone else. If you are, it's tough on a 12-man team, possibly, but it's tough. Yeah, a deep bench, 14 team, maybe, but I don't want anyone in the backfield other than Etienne. And even with Etienne, he's probably your RB2, right? He's not exactly your running back 1. So I'm good with him at a 2 or a flex. I'm happy with it. He did good last week. He did good. I'm not taking away from that.
Right. It's one of those things where you drafted him as a flex, right? And he provided you with
great flex. It was a great flex.
Great value last week.
Yeah.
On the flip side for Cincinnati, Nate alluded to it earlier, how the Bengals seem to come out sluggish, towards the beginning of seasons every year. Is this something that we should continue, or we are anticipating seeing going forward, especially today, even though the matchup here has a 49 over under? Or do you think that the Bengals just come out just flying, and it's the Higgins show, it's the Jamar Chase show, it's the Chase Brown show, and just watch out? What are your thoughts here for the Bengals offense and how they come out here today versus Jacksonville?
Look, everyone should drop Burrow, Chase, Higgins, and Brown. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals are imploding. Guys, it's Cincinnati Bengals who averaged nearly 40 points a game last year. You've got Higgins who, for a number 2 wide receiver is putting up more than other teams' wide receiver ones. It was a bad game. It happens. I'm putting full faith in the Bengals. So, Burrow knows exactly. He's a great quarterback. He's accurate. He knows how to find his guys. They'll bounce back very, very fine. I'm not worried about them whatsoever.
All right. Well, let's get into our next matchup here. And folks, we are at 11-10, now 11-11. Make a wish. For all the 750 of you who are watching over on our different channels here at Fantasy and Frames, we appreciate you. Just a little heads up, every Sunday pregame show at 11:30, the deepshot.com's Andy Behrens will be joining us for the final half hour of the show. So if you obviously know who Andy Behrens is, and let's face it, who doesn't know who Andy Behrens is in the fantasy football space, one of the icons in the industry, he'll be joining us every week from 11:30 a.m. Eastern to noon, or maybe a little bit past noon, depending on where we are with questions in the chat, as well as our analysis and all these different matchups here in the Fantasy Focus. Let's get to Dallas versus the Giants, 44.5 over under. And let's kind of segue this question here in the YouTube chat into the discussion of this game here. He said in PPR, Ridley versus the Rams, Pickens versus the Giants, Odunze versus Detroit. Dave, who are you rolling with this week?
I'm actually benching Pickens in a lot of my leagues. I want to give him a week to see what he does. Wasn't impressed last week, and he's probably your wide receiver too. It's not looking great. I liked what I saw in Ridley. Odunze, I mean, it's a tough. We saw a real up and down offense on Monday night. We saw a great first half team, terrible second half team. I'd rather the stability in Ridley. So give me Ridley. Gun on my head, the next one's probably is Pickens just over Odunze, but I think Ridley stands out among the crowd.
See, I am going to go. I am going to stick with George Pickens here, even though he has the number 2 here. The Giants per PFF have the 6th worst coverage unit against wide receivers. And that's going to kind of tie us into the discussion here, because with the Giants and the Cowboys here, one of the things, Drew Scott, who is one of our analysts here at Fantasy and Frames, and you can catch him. You can follow him at Drew3MR on Twitter, and you could find him on the Fourth and Frames podcast that we have on Wednesdays, live streaming from 10 p.m. Eastern to 11, as well as on podcasts when they drop the next morning on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is you listen to podcasts. He was referencing, some stats that he saw talking about, vertical and horizontal receiving routes, and a lot of this information we get from Fantasy Points Data Suite, which, by the way, just Fantasy Points in general, great people who run that, great website, great resources. So I want to make sure they get their due in this analysis. But he was saying how George Pickens was actually seen last week, not just being that deep ball, huck it and chuck it, football all night type of wide receiver. Anybody who gets that reference, please put that in the chat, because that is obscure, but it was from a very funny movie. He was running a lot of horizontal routes last week. And so the fact is that, Rhett Manuel, also somebody who's on the Fourth and Frames podcast a couple of years ago, did a Dynasty Target article on George Pickens over at fantasyandframes.com, where he was just basically saying, hey, George Pickens in college, he wasn't just that, huck it, chuck it all night vertical receiving game. He could do a lot of things on the field. And we started to see that, with Dallas last week. We did not see that in Pittsburgh. Granted, there is not a lot of competent quarterback play for the Pittsburgh Steelers to maybe find Pickens where he's doing some of these horizontal moves. But we saw that in Dallas. So we saw some versatility. Now you have 2 wide receivers in Dallas, both in CD and George Pickens, who can go vertical. They can go across the field. They can do anything and everything that the offense calls for them to do. And against a poor coverage unit in the Giants, I love George Pickens in this matchup. Nate, welcome back. What are your thoughts here on this question here? We have Ridley versus the Rams, Pickens versus the Giants, or Odunze versus the Lions.
Pickens is my one out of the 3. It would go Pickens, Ridley, then Odunze. And Pickens, we talked about a little about earlier, and I think I heard you allude to the Fourth and Frames conversation we were having. But even more so is, the Giants really run that single high rate quite often. And Pickens is the type of receiver I want against that exploitable matchup. While I think that obviously CD's the guy to have there, but nothing about the Dallas run game really gives me optimism against this Giants front 4. You touched on Dexter Lawrence and et cetera. The only thing that bothers me is the pass rush. And that's the only thing that limits Pickens, like true massive breakout, if he doesn't have the big play or the touchdown. But I'm still leaning Pickens myself.
Yeah, that's a very good call. Any other notes from the New York Giants versus the Cowboys matchup that we were thinking about?
Nothing that I'm hyper focusing on for future. I think you're touching on Wandale. Maybe you mentioned him while I was gone, but he's a sneaky person in even shallow leagues that if it's a PPR and you're looking to replace injuries or anything, it just seems like a safe floor. I wouldn't get too over enamored with any high upside, but he's competent within that as a PPR cheat code. Let's go to Chicago and Detroit, another divisional, potentially heavyweight bout. The one thing that I focused on, or at least wanted to focus on last week, was the involvement of Tesla and how his evolution with that offense can continue to improve. And last week I saw that they were mentioning that he was dealing with an illness. Was it the illness limiting the snaps? Was it a product of the depth chart? I think there's credence in both, but are you thinking that Tesla could be within this offense someone that you could on bye weeks, I guess, or is this even as the season progresses? Do you think there's a pathway to significant touches? And I don't know if you saw it. Carrie's with us this morning and says, "Good morning. Let's go Chiefs. Boo the Eagles." I can't agree more. She's supposed to be. She was going to go to Kansas City to watch the game or at least go tailgate. And I said I couldn't do this show without her support. And so she stuck here with me to make sure that we get through it. She's also sick. So, I'm going to lean towards she didn't want to leave me and she knew that I needed the support more so than the illness. But, you know what helps getting over an illness?
What's that?
Watching the Chiefs beat the Eagles in week 2.
Does it matter to you? Like I understand like every victory for your team matters, right? But given the fact that they lost in the Super Bowl, it's like, tell me when they were facing each other in the Super Bowl, then I'll care really about this matchup. Until then, this is just like weak consolation if the Chiefs beat the Eagles.
Yeah, but it starts to turn into, even though it's not a rival, it's we have two different, 2 Super Bowls, one of which was just an absolute, ass whooping, and the other one was controversy as far as what many of the fans want to say with the holding call towards the end of the game. So I think that it feels like the Chiefs want to prove that they can actually be, and you have to beat the Eagles. I mean, if you really want to assert your dominance on the league, win this game is huge because there's a path to them starting the opposite that they did last year, where they won so many 1-score games and close games at the end, block field goals, etc., that you start off slow and there's a little bit of doubt, but it should be an interesting game. 3:00 Central start time. We shall be looking forward to that. But outside of that, so the Isaac Tesla, at your house, Jorge, for those, Carrie and I last year, for everybody listening real quick, we went to the DC area. Jorge's son, Nathaniel, was having his welcome party, if you will, adoption party, everything. And we wanted to be part of it. So we did. And then our treat for making the trip all the way there was Jorge making us watch a Super Bowl where we got the brakes beat off of us. So yeah, great times.
Yep. Well, definitely appreciated you being there and, and at least, hanging in there. I was very impressed given the fact that we had some other people in the house who were very pro Eagles fans and were not shy about rubbing it in, how much composure you all had. And Carrie, let's be honest, I was very impressed with your composure. I would not have been mad if you just went off on these people. So sorry, Jeremy and Carrie, but you had it coming. But anyhow, I digress. To answer your question about Tesla, though, look, I brought it up earlier. Jared Goff had one of the lowest first read percentage rates last week. So he was basically throwing it to anyone and everyone. That doesn't happen this week. Not this week. This is, let's get the Amon-Ra St. Brown train going. Let's hyper target this guy like nobody's business. Let's get back into what this Lions offense is supposed to be. And let's not forget, over the course of the preseason, all their beat reporters for Detroit were saying new offensive coordinator wants to emphasize the vertical passing game. I think this is a JMO game. I think this is a Amon-Ra game. I think those are the guys he's going to zero in on in terms of wide receivers. This is a get right game for Detroit, and I think you're going to see his first read percentage. That meaning Jared Goff is going to get a lot higher this week.
Gotcha. On the other side of the ball, Caleb Williams has been a point of conversation with just the overall accuracy. One game sample size doesn't mean entire season, but if we don't see significant improvements from there, are you looking to upgrade from Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, both, or is this a hey, don't worry quite yet, the best is still to come? Dave, you have let me get you back in the show. There you are. Let me get you back. What's your take on the Bears as a whole going forward? Like, if we're trying to figure out, should we be buyers or sellers of the Chicago Bears offense?
I like what we saw in Swift. I'm happy with him as my running back too. I think Caleb Williams had a great first half, but he crumbled in the second. So it's really hard to tell because we had, a tale of two cities, really. It was two very different halves, and I just don't know what Caleb Williams we're getting. I mean, that first drive, I said it earlier, I was very impressed with Caleb Williams, thinking these guys play like this, and they're gonna turn some heads. But DJ Moore played fine. It was okay. I don't know. It's too early to tell, to be honest. But all I know is that the only confidence I have is Swift.
I want to give a special shout out to soon to be joining us, Andy Behrens, and that he mentioned the person maybe to pay attention to is Olamide Zacchaeus, who last week was second on the team in targets with 7. Interesting development is that, I think it can show that there's plenty of mouths to feed. It makes me feel a little better about Caleb's standalone fantasy value, but for the rest of the offense, it's tricky. And again, we're early. Jorge, anything else with the Bears that you're going to focus on?
Yeah. So I think we preface this with, if Caleb's accuracy does not improve, do you want to level up from? So yes, if it does not improve, I want to level up from more so than I do a Odunze, especially if it's a dynasty league, but definitely for this league this year as well. We saw it last year with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams get that chemistry, if you want to call it that, bad chemistry, led to DJ Moore like walking off the field at a certain point during a game. So like there's definitely some miscommunication going on there, some lack of chemistry. Whereas we saw Odunze last week, we were talking about it, the double-digit targets, or last hour we were talking about it, the double-digit targets there. So yeah, I would definitely want to move on from DJ Moore if Caleb's accuracy does not improve.
Gotcha. Yeah. The Miami New England game, while at an implied point total over under 43, obviously the pundits are saying that it could be just a rebound potential game for the Dolphins, because I don't think that they would expect them to get shut out or not put points on the board as a whole, which I think we can see that. But can they rebound? They had a team meeting, or a players only meeting. And I think that was a significant just step, maybe in the wrong direction, or maybe an indicator for just how this offense may be going forward. Because you don't have players and team, players only meetings if you're successful and you love the way things are going. You don't get together and have a rah-rah session about how good you're playing. You obviously have some concerns. Do we have concerns with this offense as a whole? Are they a fantasy wasteland outside of Devon Achane if they can't turn this around? Jorge, the Dolphins, seems like they could all be – there's a lot of potential buy lows within this offense.
I think you're going to get even more buy low opportunities after this week, because we were talking about it last hour. The Dolphins' offensive line heading into this matchup is super banged up, and we know that the Patriots spent a good chunk of time improving along this defensive line, bringing Harold Landry over from Tennessee, his rapport with Vrabel. Vrabel has this pass rush just going at it. And I think you're going to see them get to Tua and get to Tua a lot, which is, first of all, scary in and of itself, just given his injury history. And the fact of the matter is the pass rush is going to be so overwhelming, I believe, for New England, that you're going to see some dump offs to Devon Achane. I'm definitely going to see that. Will he have enough time to uncork it deep to Tyreek Hill? I'm maybe once or twice, but definitely not the high target volume that maybe some of us are expecting. If anything, the Waddle connection could be even more emphasized, although we saw him last week leave the game with a shoulder injury. Obviously, he's playing this week, but that is something to be paying attention to. And I'm going to stand on my hill with Malik Washington. I think he should get some more playing time, given the fact that he is one of the up and coming slot wide receivers. I believe he's up and coming based off of what he was able to do at Virginia, and then over the course of the preseason. Big Malik Washington fan. So, but the fact of the matter is, I think you're going to see still a very low performance from the Dolphins, which is, from a fantasy manager standpoint, this is where you make those trade offers to try and get some upside here. Going forward.
The Malik Washington, especially if there's a lot of talk about Tyreek. I mean, we didn't even allude to it in the note, going over the notes. Yet again, another domestic violence related concern, which all those little things start to add up. Dave, I don't want to piggyback off that to an 8-team keeper league, but that's what Jay has for us, which is in an 8-team keeper league. It's PPR, yardage bonuses. He has to sit one of these 3. We know the question is going to be loaded with talent. It's a nice thing about, sometimes that's actually the fun things about an 8-team keeper league, as while it's the most frustrating part of it, because you have to choose who you sit between Justin Jefferson, Drake London, and Ashton Genty, because you're going to be wrong more times than you're right. Question is if you have to sit one of them, which one is it?
It's Genty. It's Genty. I didn't like what I saw from him preseason. I was a little bit worried about him going into the NFL, just because obviously his numbers were through the roof, but he was not exactly in the world's toughest division, let's be honest. He got bottled up last week. I know he found the end zone. I get it, but it was not something that you spent a first-round draft pick on him. I don't know if that's number 1 draft pick numbers there, and I think he's going to struggle getting some good average yards per carry, to be honest. So obviously Jefferson is a no-brainer, but Drake London I would take right now over Ashton Genty until he shows me otherwise.
Yeah, the only thing with Drake London is the shoulder. That's the only thing that even gives me concern, is if he comes down on it wrong, could he be limited in the game or taken out altogether if it's re-aggravated? I don't know if that's enough to say, because I have Drake over Genty as well. The only little caveat to that is my concern a little bit when you have an existing injury going into a game. Jorge?
So, we go back to Genty last year at Boise. A lot of rushing attempts, very few targets or heavy utilization in the receiving game. You know what you were getting from him. And, a lot of people were saying heading into the pre-draft process, like, oh, no, he's able to do it. He just didn't really, that wasn't really the focus or point of emphasis of using him in the offense last year. But given the opportunity, he should do it. And that's the key there, is the opportunity. You have Jacoby Myers, you got Brock Bowers, like those are like the heavy targeted, options here in the receiving game. And then whoever Gino is able to throw it to, for checkdowns or for, a change of pace, wide receiver. You always hear change of pace running back, but I think we should normalize change of pace wide receiver. And to Dave's point, we saw him score the touchdown, but he for this point right now in this offense, he is more of a running threat than he is a receiving threat. And because of that, in this fact that this is a PPR, give me JJ and London.
Jay, I did send you a message on Facebook. Really want Julian Edelman, one of those photos. Want to get on a T-shirt. Looks sick. It's really cool artwork, man. I was going through it. That's some talented stuff right there.
I know. It was really hard not just to drop a couple $100 that weekend and just get. Luckily, I didn't have carry there, because I would have ended up getting all kinds, because I would have had I have a choice, but I don't have a choice when it comes to that. We have some choices.
I have a choice, but I don't.
Everybody has. Yes, we all have choices. The one choice that we don't have is at this moment is seeing Mac Jones start at quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
Hey, they finally got their guy. It took them 5 years, but they got him for free, right?
I mean, free is probably a little much, still an overspend, but whatever. It's nice. Mac Jones at quarterback. We've seen the Mac Jones scenario unfold. The question I really have is that is it his product, with the coaching staff being in an offense that is, I know, conducive to getting the most out of the quarterback position? What's the most we can expect? Hey, Andy.
Hi.
Just in time for Mac
friends.
Jones conversation.
Hell yeah.
Welcome in Andy Behrens, everyone. Get your start sit questions for him if you've been saving all 1,000 of them, because he's prepared and ready. But before that, let's give him a little appetizer and talk about, we're in the San Francisco and New Orleans game. What a game to jump in. I think you were probably just waiting in anticipation for this, because I would love to hear, I hate to put you on the spot, but realistically, is there anything in this game like that you're focusing on to think, how can I get a better piece of the pie of either one of these? Oh, there's Carrie for you, Andy, by the way.
Always have a peanut for Carrie, sure.
I
think Juwan Johnson is an interesting name, certainly, because everybody, there was a choice on the waiver wire this week at tight end, and a lot of people had a need, right? Because you've got Kittle going out, you got Bowers suffered the injury, Ingram suffered an injury, a lot of action at tight end, and I feel like there was a Juwan Johnson and Harold Fannin choice, and I was very much team Fannin. I get it with Juwan Johnson. I absolutely get it. It was a lot of volume. He's more the pure receiver type, right? If you're just looking for that sort of tight end who's just really just a big receiver and he doesn't actually have a distinct position. I thought, not to go off on a Fannin thing, but I thought what they asked him to do in week 1 was wild. And the fact that he was able to do it all was incredible. So I think real life tight end, that's definitely my guy. But Juwan Johnson's usage going forward is going to really be a story. And then obviously for San Francisco, it's whether Mac Jones can sort of keep everything on schedule and keep things, I don't know. He doesn't have to be exactly Brock Purdy, and he's not going to, Brock Purdy's a pretty frisky runner. He doesn't exactly have that upside, but we did get, just over 200 passing yards per game from him last year out of, a half a season. It wasn't a particularly small sample. And he's the guy who turned Brian Thomas into a first round pick this year. So that's not nothing. I think you can feel okay about Pearsall. Can Mac Jones support, 3 guys, 2 guys? I don't know, but I know he can support 1. And I've got all these shares of Pearsall. That's really all I care about. I don't love the idea of watching Mac Jones at quarterback there, but I think he can keep things running on time.
Do you think that Alvin Kamara can continue to play 75 plus 80% of the snaps and receive 2 targets in a game? That has to change. I mean, come on. That is hopefully the outlier of the outliers for week 1 that shouldn't happen again and going forward. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, no, it would be shocking if that continues, because I think we all know that he's one of the most adept, and not just like a check down option. Alvin Kamara is a guy that he can run routes. He's in that class of running back. So I'd very much doubt that we see that. Although I will say that we have seen a lot more of Kamara as a pure runner for that team over the, basically since the Sean Payton era. His usage has changed a little bit. But it's unimaginable. It's unthinkable. I don't think we're going to see another game where the target total is outrageously, scandalously low.
Yeah.
So we do have some breaking news, but for the sake of Andy's eardrums from last week, I will avoid playing the breaking news segment until I can lower its volume.
Thank you.
Jair Alexander of the Ravens is out today versus Cleveland, and Devin Weatherspoon of the Seahawks is out. This is inactive today versus the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So
one thing that no one's really brought up is the impact Mac Jones is going to have on CMC. I mean, are we expecting a decline? I mean, truth is, I trust Mac Jones at quarterback as much as an old man wearing white pants trusts a fart. So, yeah, he might do good, he might do bad, and I'm just worried he's just going to air the ball out, and CMC's not going to get his, usage that gets him the numbers he gets.
I can't believe they're not going to build the entire offense around CMC. Honestly, I mean, but I don't know. I'm not Kyle Shanahan. It's just me guessing. But man, I gotta think that this is almost a perfect storm for CMC. I definitely understand and appreciate the idea that the ceiling of the offense is not what it is with Brock Purdy for sure, and that's a bit of a killer. But usage wise, man, one thing that we've certainly seen from Shanahan, even when it doesn't seem like the smart thing to the rest of us, they will ride the heck out of CMC. He's probably at a point. Yeah, go ahead.
They just stack the box. I mean, and stop the run, because really, other than Pearsall, who we got?
Yeah, it's we're about to find out maybe if we're at the point in CMC's career where a stacked box is really effective. I mean, obviously, he's been in situations throughout his career where he put 9 in the box and it doesn't matter. He's great, and he can be used in a variety of ways. That's the thing about McCaffrey, is it doesn't all have to be runs, between the tackles. We can get him the ball in space in a lot of different ways. So I'd feel pretty good about him on volume, but I hear you on the idea that maybe San Francisco is just going to be a team that averages somewhere in the 17 to 20 point per game range for a little while. And that'd be bad for everybody.
Yeah. I wouldn't be too terribly shocked if it's not an incorporation of moving CMC into space a little bit more so, and even having Brian Robinson on if they don't have the plethora of wide receivers to have the output for that offense. But I think both of which scenarios are beneficial for CMC, because it's hard to imagine an area where he's going to have 10 targets every single game, but it's also not difficult to imagine a situation where he sees 10 targets and significant touches up and down the field. So I hear your concern though, Dave. I think everybody's concerned when you lose pieces like Kittle and potentially Jawan Jennings. And I think
Jennings is playing. He's officially starting.
Trent Williams, that was the area that did I see his name mentioned within injuries?
Let me look it up there. No, let me look it up for you there.
While you do that, Andy, I'll let you answer this start-sit question. I don't think you got too many of these last week.
Oh, fun.
You avoided, I know, man.
I dodged them successfily last week.
I know. I did give you credit and shout out. Olamide Zaccheaus, 7 targets last week. Even in DFS, if you had him, I think he returned 2.5x value towards all people that would have had him on their slate. So hopefully, if there's millionaires out there now as a result, Andy Behrens,
come at the tip jar,
exactly.
Find me.
So here's your pick 2. It's a PPR format. It is Jaylen Warren versus Seattle, Keon Coleman against the Jets, Jameson Williams against the Bears, Calvin Ridley against the Rams. We'll start there, then we'll get to the second opinion question.
One thing you'll find with me when I take what should be a simple sit start question is I just want to go off on a tangent about specific players here, and I'll say right away that I'm not going to start Ridley. And it was a low passing volume situation. I thought the Rams defense looked really good. I thought they really handled every Houston receiver very well last week. It was like to the point that it was almost jarring if you have shares of Houston's offense. But I do want to say I thought Cam Ward looked a lot better than his numbers, and the numbers were terrible, right? Like that was a box score that you can't possibly live with. But man, he put the ball on a lot of people's hands last week, and it didn't amount to anything. They didn't always catch it, or they didn't get 2 feet in bounds, and it got messy. But I thought he had a better game than the box score would indicate. He did, he did the rookie thing where you're trying to extend plays in a way that you just can't in the NFL. You can do it in college, you can't do it in the NFL, and you got to learn that really fast. I think the two guys that I would start here are I'm not like all of a sudden Jameson Williams, who was everybody's favorite draft pick or a lot of people's favorite draft pick, is finding his way to all these sit-start questions after 1 week. Man, like there are big plays to be had against the Bears defense, which has already been banged up at the start of the season. So I think I would go ahead and continue to play Jameson Williams. And I'm also a believer in Keon Coleman.
Well, then you get to also play the role of tiebreaker. I don't remember who took which side. I think I was on the Keon Coleman over Diggs side. Not to say here's a couple bucks to take my side, but Stephon Diggs versus Keon Coleman in a PPR. Choose one.
This one's so tricky for me because, like, man, New England looked bad last week, and Drake May looked bad. And I don't want to like sugarcoat it. There were a whole bunch of second-year quarterbacks who looked pretty bad last week, and Drake May was one of them, and he was pretty well hyped too. But this is so much friendlier a matchup. I get it. If people want to start Diggs, I'm starting him in a couple places, but I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm buying the Coleman Kool-Aid a little bit. I'm buying some of the sunshine on Keon Coleman, and I pretty well trust him. Also, Jets defense not exactly what we had perhaps imagined them to be.
Yeah, that's a question really just for, I guess, the masses. Is I was so low on Keon Coleman last year that I want to break that thought process that I had and try to, shake it up and forget that I even had those opinions. But is it hard for you guys to do the same thing sometimes when you have a set opinion, or are you good at just being a goldfish and forgetting to take the Ted Lasso approach? Andy, how good are you at shaking previous opinions on players?
Like over the years, I don't know if you do this long enough, you have to do it. Like you can't be the guy. You can't be the guy who just bangs the table and is completely inflexible in his opinions, because the NFL just, it chews up our best plans, right? Like the NFL is a league that is just dominated by chaos and injuries and suspensions and breakouts that nobody sees coming, and you get left behind if you have such strongly held opinions that you don't want to be the person who starts complaining in week 2 about, oh, why don't these NFL coaches see what I see? Why don't, come on, they see it every day. You're wrong. Like it's okay to be wrong in this game. It's okay to be wrong. The one of the best attributes you can have is, loosely held opinions. Like you can argue for them as strenuously as you want, but when evidence piles up, you gotta pivot. And if you don't pivot, you're gonna make a whole bunch of bad decisions.
Shit, I was hoping you were gonna say the biggest attribute you could have is being wrong. If that was the case, I am blessed with attributes. Dave, speaking of being blessed with attributes, how good is Ezekiel Elliott going to be this year? That seems to be your unfortunate. I'm holding on hope way too long.
I still keep checking on updates, waiting to see if he finds a team. Holding hope.
I don't blame you. Jorge, you've never been wrong a day in your life, so we'll move on past that. The Buffalo Bills and New York Jets, it feels like we've kind of touched on a lot of the pieces within the Buffalo passing game, mostly within Keon Coleman, and knowing Josh Palmer might have some spike weeks as a whole. But I guess the Jets running back situation, I don't know if there is a situation, or are we looking at not fool's gold, but does the success that Breece Hall had in week 1 completely eliminate the threat that is Braylon Allen that I think we all had going into draft season? Jorge, do you see him even breaking our hearts a little bit with some terrible, what's the coaches doing? Why is he getting more touches than he should?
I mean, we saw Breece Hall last week have a 57.8% snap share to Braylon Allen's 31.2. Most importantly, we saw the productivity that we saw with Breece Hall. And so if there was ever a game for a player to say, "No, this is my backfield, back off," it was last week with Breece Hall.
Every team wants a good workhorse running back, right? I mean, I've said it before, but look back to this going back a while, like 2017 when you had Deion Lewis and Derrick Henry in Tennessee. And Derrick Henry had a terrible, terrible year. It wasn't until later at the end of the year where they made him the workhorse, and he did that infamous 99-yard run where people went, oh, maybe we should give Derrick Henry more carries. So, and look at him now. What, 6-7 years later, he's still an absolute stud, putting up 150 plus rushing yards last week. So I think they want Breece Hall to be that workhorse with Braylon Allen just sprinkled in.
I don't remember if we talked about I talked about it on this show last week or where I talked about it. Maybe I talked about it everywhere, but I think there's a big gap between Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, and it was not well acknowledged in the run up to the season, right? Because we're always hunting for like the next thing, and I think Braylon Allen's a good player, but I think Breece Hall is a pretty unique talent. Like it wasn't. I mean, in retrospect, it was a mistake that we were talking him up as like, should he be the second or third overall pick last year? But he is a talent that, you know, he deserves that kind of consideration. Like, I don't think he's just another running back. I think he's pretty special, and I think there's a gap between those two.
Yeah, I can remember not far before the season started when every talk was about how, when, and to who Breece Hall was going to get traded for peanuts, and Braylon Allen was going to be the number one. And Braylon Allen in ADP, especially like if you look at some of the NFBC leagues, towards the main events time, Braylon Allen was sneaking up into the late single digits, like I think the 5th, 6th round. I was going to pull it up and look so I don't speak out of both sides.
We gotta get better at like processing throwaway comments from head coaches during the summer too, right? Because for the most part, they're gonna say nice things about everyone if prompted. I mean, not everybody does like what Ben Johnson did this summer, which was to sort of tell it like it is. Most coaches, if you ask them, if you tee them up on a player, they're going to be like, yeah, we got to get the guy more touches. We love him. Great offseason. He's in great shape. And maybe we ran a little bit ahead of things with Braylon Allen. Cause that's just typical coach speak.
He had a high pick of 71 during draft season. Braylon Allen did, with a low of 187. I mean, there was very few that had wider ranges that weren't named Joe Mixon or Quinshon Judkins, just because of, rightfully so, you know. Dave, go ahead. What were you going to say? I'm sorry to cut you off.
I was just going to say, in the last 10 years, I can only remember maybe 2 or 3 instances where there's been a 1A, 1B running back. You've got Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman back in 2015. You got Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, I want to say about a year later. You could argue that Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery were that last year. It is really difficult to get a true shared running back field with 2 quality guys. You know, we've seen it attempted before. I mean, people thought J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards would be last year, and look how that turned out. It was just the J.K. Dobbins show. So I think it's tough having a handcuff running back, because 9 times out of 10, they typically are just that, handcuffs. You know, you're relying on 5-6 carries to work some magic with it.
So, you know, it's interesting. I was hoping that this year would be the year where Ray Davis would challenge for more playing time behind James Cook. We're talking about the Jets and Bills here. You go back to last season, it was still James Cook, then Ty Johnson, but then Ray Davis, and Ray Davis was pretty close to snap percentage. You know, Johnson had a 29% snap percentage. Ray Davis had a 24.3. So like the idea that there could be some closing of the gap here was not unheralded. Going back to last week, Ty Johnson 32.9%, Ray Davis 11.8. That is pretty telling if you ask me.
Ray Davis is good too. Ray Davis is
I know,
verifiably good. Yeah, when he got a shot last year, that Jets game, he was awesome.
Yeah, and you know, not to go back to the Breece conversation, but like Jay says, you know, for 2 straight years, Breece had serious problems in short yardage, and I think all those little pieces build up into a narrative that helps make a complete book of you know, issues. And Dave, we also forgot D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, my favorite.
Good call. Good call. I forgot that. Yeah.
Lendale White and Chris Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
And Jorge brought up the original from, not the original tandem, but it was
Ron Dane and Tiki Barber.
Yep. And then
Brandon Jacobs, Ahmad Bradshaw. That was
Very good. See, exactly. Yep.
And that's who I thought he was talking about. Because, well, Andy and I, of course, I mean, both SIU alumni. Brandon Jacobs. Brandon Jacobs was a running back when I was there. Him and Bart Scott was a linebacker.
Oh my gosh.
Bart Scott.
Yep. Lost to Joe Flacco, and I think Delaware is where he was at. Yeah. Lost to Delaware in the NAIA or whatever it was, Division II championship.
We got a question. Another question here from the chat. He said he would love to ask Nate and Andy about PPR. Pickens versus the Giants, Ridley versus the Rams, Odunze versus Detroit, since there was a split between Jorge and Dave earlier. Andy, let's start with you.
This is one of those questions where like my ranks may say one thing, but I would be totally willing to just look the other way if you wanted to start Rome Odunze. Like I get it. I think the Bears are really talking about how much they're going to run today, and Ben Johnson would surely like to, dial back the dependence on Caleb Williams in this game, but I don't think they're going to be able to. I mean, I think Detroit can put up a number and they're going to have to chase it. So I think Odunze is set up for a pretty good day. I would still play George Pickens. I'm not off George Pickens. I think that was a really good offseason for him, and I think it's a get right week for Dallas. So I would play Pickens. I mean, I unfortunately have Odunze on the bench in a bunch of places, and I still feel pretty good about him. I think what I would do is I would play George Pickens, and then I would set a DFS lineup with Odunze.
There you go. See, and I will. I'm not going to take another name. So make you happy there. Epic. I also with Pickens, and we've touched on Pickens quite a bit so far in this show, and a lot with bringing up this single high safety and his individual horizontal routes and the ability to get to break free. And I don't think Dak looked bad last week. I think that it was a weird game from the start. I think that when you lose Jalen Carter as like your main focal point against the defense, and they pivoted so much in terms of running the ball that it really created I think the offense as a whole realized that they had an opportunity, and that's just my opinion. I don't know that 100%, but Andy, like I've said numerous times, there's no chance in my mind that Dallas went into that game thinking we're going to run the ball, 45% of the time up the middle towards Jalen Carter. So for them to pivot I think that was a really good play call. And was that Schottenheimer that on the fly made that decision? Maybe, but it just shows how good Philly is that they said, we're not even going to change it. We don't even care. Run the ball. We're still going to do well.
I agree with you though. I think that game was full of lies because there's realistically, I thought Javonte looked fine. Like it was an encouraging game from Javonte, but there's no way that was their intent to go between the tackles that often, and good for them for doing it when Jalen Carter wasn't there. But yeah, I agree with you.
If it was the plan, that scares me
terrible plan.
That's when we can say that coach is wrong. We're right. We've been watching on TV long enough that was poor.
I think we see a different Pickens game if Jalen Carter's not there. I think they go to the air a lot more, and Pickens is the guy that we all expected him to be. But I think they just last minute just went, hey, we've got a gap in the defense. Let's exploit, which is smart.
It really was. Buffalo and the Jets. The last thing, I don't think there's anything else to talk about that. So the Seattle-Pittsburgh game, pretty low scoring. I think the Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker breakdown has been discussed. Andy, I guess we haven't asked you as far as, do you expect the entire season to be this split workload? Do you think Kenneth Walker regains more of the role, or does Zach Charbonnet regain? Is it just going to be a headache for the entire season?
Well, it wouldn't shock me if it's a headache for the entire season. It wouldn't shock me if Charbonnet plays a lot. I generally think that Kenneth Walker, in part because he's looking, Kenneth Walker, like his whole career has been kind of a, hunt for big plays kind of runner. And I imagine sometimes that frustrates coaches. But he is the guy who is more likely to deliver a big play in my mind. And Charbonnet is maybe a little bit more, color by numbers, but very effective and very effective in multiple ways. So I imagine they're both going to play. I imagine both, no matter which one you have on a roster, you're going to be a little bit frustrated by it. Walker, I wish this weren't the case. I wish I was the guy who could be like, oh, Charbonnet's just better. And I see some of that sentiment online now. But I don't think it's that simple. I mean, they wouldn't both be playing if the coaching staff thought it was that simple. Right. I think Walker is generally the guy who is more likely to give you, a 50-yard touchdown versus Charbonnet. But I think Charbonnet's numbers can always be there. And if the offense ever just comes down to him, he's a fully functional player. But I do think he needs volume in a way that Walker maybe does not.
Can I ask you guys to play the role of false idol, clairvoyant, if you will, because I believe that there's some traction in that Jalen Milroe could be the quarterback sooner rather than later if Sam Darnold doesn't impress. I know that I'm probably in the minority with that, because why would they bring Darnold in and knowing that acclimation to a new offense and Jalen Milroe, is he really the answer? But let's say he does assume that role. Is JSN someone that you're comfortable still having like as your, I mean, he would probably be your 2 if you drafted him where you did. Most likely he's not your 1, but maybe he is. Do we think that that's a significant drop? And I'm using this as weeks down the road. Like, if you think that's a possibility, is it sooner? Is there a good time to jump ship or at least trade high on JSN? Andy, is that an option? Something you're even contemplating? You're
actually talking about my most heavily rostered player. I'm pretty sure, at least among guys who were taken like in the first 5 rounds. I was all about JSN. I was a full believer in basically what we saw in week 1, which is, we're going to see that guy all over the place, and there's not a comparable player to him in that receiving core. And I don't know if we can get very many more games where didn't Darnold only complete like 15 passes last week and JSN got most of them. I mean, that's I don't want to be in the situation where I need a huge share of the pie when the pie is that small. I'd like to think that there's going to be a little bit more balance there. And I also, I presume that some of last week was just about the quality of the opposing defense, but it doesn't get that much easier this week, right? So I'm concerned, and I hear you on the possibility that Milroe could simply take over. That might very well happen if Sam Darnold doesn't look like a difference maker, and that team is 500 or worse. Sure, that should absolutely be on the radar. I do think, however, that like JSN's actual on-field usage and the gap between him and anybody else in that receiving core is probably what would save him.
And I agree with that. I think it was something that when I started hearing the Milroe talk, I immediately think, I don't have as much shares as you do, but I don't think that I would. I don't know. I hate trading away with this speculation that Jalen Milroe can't come in and throw him the ball. Like you said, Darnold had 16 completions, and 70% of them basically went to him. So Milroe could even do that, I believe. Dave, they
paid a pretty penny for him, man. I can't see them just.
That's true as well.
Dropping Darnold after a handful of games. I mean, what was the contract he got? It was 100 million plus, right, for a few years. I mean, I might be wrong here, but you're not paying a guy that much money to freak out after week 1. It's not saying Milroe can't do it. I mean, Josh Allen's first year, he took over from Ryan Fitzpatrick or something. I forget exactly who he took over, but his last 4 or 5 games, he balled out. So it's not saying Milroe can't do it. I think he has that talent, but they're definitely giving Darnold, even if they go 0-5, they're giving him a few more weeks. I can't see them giving up on Darnold that quick.
Do you think they just go immediately to Milroe, or does this Drew Lock enter the conversation at all, just as a stopgap, or do they think they just go straight to? All right, well, we're just going to go straight to Milroe because we need some explosive plays and we need to get into these games that are contested.
We shouldn't assume that it's bad if Milroe takes over, because if he takes over, it's because what he shows them every day is really, really promising, right? Like, I don't think they're just going to make that switch to make it. I think Milroe would have to force their hand.
Yeah, and I would agree. I do want to jump to the other side of the ball with Pittsburgh, because I think there's a couple things that if we expect Aaron Rodgers to not maybe have last week's success, I think that's not what I'm asking, but who's going to have the success? And I I was pleasantly surprised to see that really Calvin Austin was the recipient of the second most targets and really looked good. Number one, Andy, I'll ask you this, is Pittsburgh's, passing tree or passing funnel outside of DK and maybe working in the tight ends in some capacity. Is Calvin Austin someone that maybe you would have looked at, or even this week potentially? He played, I guess, the majority of any of the slot availability against no Devin Witherspoon. Maybe a DFS little sneaky play this week.
Oh, sure. I think that's absolutely right. And he was, I'm trying to think of the players that I actually added from the wire most heavily last week. It's probably Austin and Fannin. He's a clear winner in that receiving core. Like, we had some discussion about who the number 2 was going to be, but I think it's now that he's healthy after last week, I think that's pretty settled. I think it's him, it's Jonnu, and obviously it's DK. I'm really looking forward to what they have in store for Seattle with DK this week. I think it might be something.
Yes.
And Rodgers is exactly the right kind of petty to help a guy, put up numbers against his old team.
That is I forget the revenge game narrative, petty pile-on approach. I don't
think it matters to most players, but I do think it matters to Aaron
Exactly.
Rodgers, and I'm sure it matters to DK.
So, okay, yeah, it matters to DK. Yeah, okay. So I was going to say, like, is it a revenge game if the player wanted out, or is it a revenge game if he was traded without any knowledge of what was going to happen whatsoever? Or
yeah,
both?
you can definitely look at it as a revenge game on Seattle's part against DK, right? Like,
that's fair.
That part is also true.
Well, the last piece of the Pittsburgh pie that is intriguing is just what's the hope for Caleb Johnson? I mean, going forward, if he's stuck at some point, Jorge, you're in a shallow league, you're in a 12-team league with limited bench spots, and you have Caleb Johnson. How long is too long to wait before you can just drop and pick up, especially if you're facing like injuries or eventually he's going to be bye weeks that we come in? Does he make a name for himself, or at least move up past Kenneth Gainwell before the bye week conundrum?
Man, if I have a shallow bench, it's going to be, and I get a game from him this week, much like last week where he had -2 rushing yards. It is very hard for me. I'm not saying I'm like adding Kenneth Gainwell. But I am saying I would make space off of my roster on a redraft team for somebody who can give me more than negative yardage. So I would get rid of Caleb Johnson and maybe go hit the waiver wire with somebody for more upside.
Gotcha. Well, it is the 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock hour right now. I want to make sure that we touch on, like last week, we got the Olamide Zacchaeus news. There's a few games remaining. We have the Rams and Titans, Panthers and Cardinals, Denver, Indy, Philly, KC, Atlanta, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Houston, and then the second Monday night game between the Chargers and the Raiders. Any of these, is there any little internal battles, snap battles, position battles, etc., that you're focusing on that might give us, the fantasy managers, a week's advantage over the rest?
Well, this isn't this isn't the kind of thing where like maybe it gives you an advantage over everybody else to watch this, but man, I am pretty interested to see what Daniel Jones looks like against an elite defense.
Right.
I thought it was almost a little bit, a lot of major fantasy sites led their waiver wire features with Daniel Jones last week ahead of a matchup with Denver, which to me seemed crazy. I mean, it's a non-bye week. Like, you're really going to start Daniel Jones against the Denver Broncos in a non-bye week? That seems nuts. But if we do get a version of Daniel Jones who can just be a competent manager surrounded by pretty good receivers, and they let him run, he's interesting. And I think Denver's defense is going to be such a great test for quarterbacks all year. That's about as difficult as it's going to get. I thought, obviously Cam Ward put up terrible numbers against them last week, but I still think he passed the eye test. And if Denver just simply doesn't like crumple up Daniel Jones and toss him in the bin, I'm going to be a little bit intrigued by him.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say.
I will be completely wrong if that's the case, because I 100% any lead in with Daniel Jones as a pickup and potential stash, or not even really stash as a stream, I thought was just, I don't want to say horrible advice. It's questionable based off of everything that we know how good Denver can be. And it's a historic week for him. You know, like we saw the stats. He did something that no one's done, is not have a drive that didn't result in points. So it was unique. Dave, what were you saying?
If I asked you this time last week, I know what the answer would be, but right now, Drake May or Daniel Jones, who are you starting? Being serious, I'm taking Daniel Jones.
I'm taking Drake May. I like the friendlier defensive matchup here for New England than I do with Indy.
Yeah, I like the idea of picking on Miami based on, everything we saw from Miami last week. But I hear you. I thought Drake May looked sort of jarring. I could say this of Bo Nix as well. I could say it of other guys, but I thought Drake May was alarmingly bad last week.
If the one statement that we clip from this entire thing is, can the Miami Dolphins make Drake May look like Daniel Jones? If that's the headliner for an article, then I don't know if I want to read that, but that's a scary scary statement.
I also think you guys might, or Nate in particular, you might not be ready to consider it, but like who Kansas City is throwing to is another huge question for me, and whether they get more from Thornton. Like I'm just 15, 16 targets to Hollywood Brown is not the answer. That is absolutely not the answer, and it's not that's not going to get you past Philadelphia today. That might get you a win against some teams, but that is not going to get you a win against the Eagles. So maybe they don't have an answer on the roster, but I thought they were doing some fun stuff with Brashard Smith in the preseason, and maybe he's used as a receiver, and maybe we can get more out of Thornton. I don't know, but they have a big challenge ahead without Xavier Worthy, and obviously without Rice, and how they solve the problem at receiver from week to week is going to be an ongoing story.
I wish I knew.
Andy, do you mind if we shoot for you 3 rapid fire questions here? Just starting. All right. PPR, pick one: Dobbins, Walker, or Charbonnet.
Oh yeah, I'd go Dobbins.
All right. We got another PPR, Harold Fannin or Kyle Pitts.
I'm so far gone on Harold Fannin, and I was wowed by his tape and his usage last week. And I'll just, I'm definitely starting Harold Fannin there. I mean, if they came out in week 1 and he's like a lead blocker on multiple runs, and they're giving him wildcat snaps, and he's getting 9 targets, and he's like his best plays were negated by penalty. I mean, I thought he looked awesome. And you go a long time and not see a rookie tight end in his first game used that way, especially when they've got another really good tight end on the roster. I'm just a huge, I know that Kyle Pitts can't do what Harold Fannin has already done one time. I know that he can't do it. I get it. Great athlete, all that, a lot of hope for him. And he's sort of that glorified wide receiver type, but man, Fannin was freaking awesome. And I'm gonna err on the side of the better player, which is I'm so far gone on Fannin. I legitimately think he might actually be a top 5 NFL tight end right now. Not fantasy tight end, but like in real life. That was a crazy game.
So what you're saying is, I need to mail you a Harold Fannin jersey if you don't have one already, so you can wear it every week. Okay. Last question here. Also PPR, Ricky Pearsall or Emeka Egbuka. He is scared of the Texans defense.
I'm a little scared of I'm a little scared of him too. I think I'd play Ricky Pearsall, but you're also talking about another player where like I was way out of line with consensus on Ricky Pearsall. I thought for me, entering the season, he was a wide receiver too in fantasy, and I don't think differently about him now.
All right.
Yeah, besides that, I can't think of another scenario that I really, focus. I guess the final thing, just because I wrote it in there and I'm intrigued, is Ayo Manor in Tennessee. If you can lead the team in first read targets and in air yards, as Cam Ward might have seen. I mean, there were some highlights, there were some lowlights, of course, but we're trying to pick anything out of the waiver wire, what we can, is that one of the names that maybe if in deeper benches that you would say, hey, pay attention this week because we might get, he could lead the list of must adds if he wasn't already in the waiver wire for week 1.
Yep, I agree with you there. From the connection in college to now, like everything in the preseason, like he was only running with these starters in the preseason for a reason, and now he's, like you said, he's leading first retargets. It makes sense if you haven't added him already to add him this week.
I will also say that every receiver let down Cam Ward last week, right?
Yeah.
Like that receiving core is weirdly wide open. Like Chig had a terrible drop and Ridley had drop. I mean, everybody dropped the ball and or didn't make plays that were there to be made. So I actually think the receiving hierarchy there is I think it's wide open.
Nice. Well, guys, again, it's 11 after the hour, so we'll let everybody get running here so you can get your your lineup set, unless you are smart enough to only do best ball leagues, which I am not smart enough to do quite yet. One of these years I'll learn my lesson. But Andy, tell us a little bit about, what you have coming out in the next couple of days over the next week or so.
Oh yeah, you guys can always find me at the Deep Shot. You can find Dalton Del Don stuff there as well. He will have, a full Sunday recap on Monday, and I'm going to have the waiver wire piece available as soon as possible on Monday.
If you guys, people listening, do not follow or get the information over at the Deep Shot yet, I can tell you, I hope that there's other people out there for other sites that are looking at it and weeping, thinking, how in the world is this collection of talent and information out there basically at your disposal for nothing? It's, when I say nothing, I mean, comparatively speaking, it's invaluable for the value.
Thank you.
Whatever. Either way, however I said that, I don't know if that was a compliment or not.
It was an intended compliment. So there, exactly.
I don't know if that was good or not.
I will say it's out there because I felt so badly burned by major media that there was no way I was going to work for another large media company again.
Yep.
Well, in that case, there's another website if you ever have some spare time called fantasyandframes.com that you're more than welcome to. Just wanted to throw that out there.
I love you guys in the category of major media for sure.
Oh, well then, thank you with the question mark at the end. This is great. Thank you, everybody. All close to 900 of you who've been watching us all morning. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe wherever you are tuning in to us. And of course, you can always check out all of our articles: Waiver, IDP Waiver, Plays and Fades, IDP Plays and Fades, and Fantasy Football Trends of the Week articles, as well as our rankings over at fantasyandframes.com. Anything else?
Nope. That's about it.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week.